My entitled neighbors sent their relatives to my house to try and use my pool without my consent, resulting in all of us going to court, with my neighbor and their family being guilty of a second-degree trespassing charge. Here's what happened. Okay, so the front of my driveway has a sign that reads private property, no trespassing as you pull into the driveway. I have a fence up around my pool to keep out unwanted animals and intruders, with the only way in being a key that you need to unlock the gate. I have security cameras on certain places of the house pointing to the pool. So with that information out of the way, last summer while I was away, my phone alerted me. It basically said that my security cameras had caught something, and so I checked to see the live footage, and it was 3 teenagers that were in their early teens and 1 adult trying to climb the fence to my pool. I have a tarp over my pool at all times, which can only be removed by a switch in my house, and you would think that they would see the tarp and then just leave. Well, I immediately called the police and they told me that they would take care of it. The 4 didn't even attempt to leave, and they just kept trying to climb the fence, and I then watched as the 4 of them were arrested. The day I get home, my neighbor, who must have been watching from my car, storms over and starts screaming at me. My sister and her kids are gonna have a criminal record now because of you. But I looked at them and I said, oh, so that's who my cameras detected. You should know my sign in front of my house says private property and no trespassing. She then says that she'll see me in court when their court date comes up. The sister of the neighbor pleaded in court it was a hot summer day and they wanted to cool down, so her sister insisted that they go use my pool, but to ignore the sign that said private property because her sister and I are good friends. But my neighbor and I are not good friends. I explained to the judge that I did not give consent for my neighbor to use my pool while I was gone. The judge saw all the evidence needed, especially the sign in my driveway saying no trespassing, and found the neighbor and her sister guilty of second-degree trespassing, which in my state carries the punishment of a $200 fine and 20 days in jail. The judge found the 2 nephews and niece guilty as well. My lawyers also requested a restraining order, which was also granted. The teen lawyer tried to explain that the teens didn't know about the sign in my driveway, but the judge dismissed that because they willingly listened to their mother and aunt in believing that it was okay to trespass, which is most definitely not my problem. Okay, I love this so much because my God, that is so dangerous. Like, you have so many things set up to be like, hey, don't go on my property while I'm not there. This is private property, there's a locked door, and I have my pool covered. Literally, there are so many things that show that, hey, this is not something you want to mess with. You shouldn't be here and this is not okay. And the fact that your neighbor literally was like, oh, it's okay, we're friends. It's like, dude, no, we're not. If you were my friend, you would not be telling them to break the law and trespass onto my property. So good for you for shutting this down because honestly, this could have been so much worse if somebody got hurt. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for asking my husband to go low contact with his college ex after he literally called me by her name twice in a row? Here's what's going on. I'm a 27-year-old female and I've been married to my husband for almost a year. We had known each other and were good friends for a year and a half before finally tying the knot. We decided to start seeing each other after knowing each other for almost a year. During our friendship and our relationship, even during the short span that we have been married, I knew about his past and I was always open about mine. I am someone who tries her absolute best in a relationship and gives a guy plenty of chances, but once it's done, and I never look back. But my husband had experiences in the past when he either bounced back to one of his exes for a short booty call situation or just a flirtationship. Now, I had no reason to doubt my husband's loyalty. However, my trust in him dwindled a bit when he was entertaining his mother-in-law about complaints about me in the beginning of our marriage. She would rant about me, said things like, I'm not happy with your marriage and all this other stuff, and he wouldn't stand up for me, at least in the very beginning. However, we worked through it and moved past it. It caused me a lot of pain that he would do that, but I set my boundary in that respect, and he learned not to toe his mother-in-law's line where I was concerned. Fast forward to a few months in, and my husband would bring up his ex every time he watched his favorite sport because his ex's father worked for our country's sports team. So he would bring up her father a lot. All the times he hung out with the players, all the trips that he went with them, all the autograph stuff that he has, their beautiful house, their successful business, etc. He would always say, oh, Lily's father's this and Lily's father's that. And for the sake of the story, the name of the ex is gonna be Lily. As he is super passionate about that sport, I would get slightly bothered to hear her name so many times every time he passionately talked about that sport, which by the way was a lot. Well, I eventually let him know. He defended himself first that he admired her father and not her, but later understood and just kind of stopped talking about him. Well, fast forward to a month later, and she invited us to a game of that sport in premium seats, which she could arrange because of her father's position. Well, fast forward and we were in the car. It was my husband, his ex, me, and another friend of the ex. We were were on the way to the stadium where we were set to meet their other friends when my husband accidentally calls me by his ex's name. I didn't acknowledge it then, even though it was quite embarrassing in that moment because a silence followed when he said that. And you know what? The other people in the car noticed as well, but I just brushed by it really quickly. A few weeks later, I calmly told him that what he did really bothered me. He defended himself again, saying that it was a mistake and that our names are similar, and he has a lot of trauma from college when he was dating her, when he would say her name a lot while trying to calm her down during fights. But I could not accept that explanation, and I got really angry when he kept repeating it. So we ended up fighting, we made up, and then later on, when we were still talking about the same topic calmly, he calls me by her name again. I then told him that he needs to go low contact with her at least until he's officially over the trauma from their relationship. That way, he can stop accidentally calling me by her name. He understood and said that he'd honor my wishes until I get comfortable with the idea of having her as his friend. They do have common friends and had plans to play a sport together with friends and me last weekend, but she canceled last minute because of her other commitments. My husband calls her again today to make similar plans with the same group of friends before he called the other friends. He brought it up with me casually, but started getting confused when I asked for details. First, he said that she called him and tried to make the plan, and later he admitted that he was the one who called her. He also tried to tell me that he called her only to coordinate because their other friend asked him to make the plan, and later he admitted to calling her before he texted the other friend about the plan. He called her on his own, no provocation, but he says it doesn't matter much because it was only about the sport, as if I'm the one overreacting. He says he didn't talk to her for over a month because I asked him not to. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation for trying to set some kind of boundary? Because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, it really is super inappropriate that your husband can call you by his ex's name multiple times. And it's like, dude, why are you still friends with your ex? Like, that's so weird. Why not kick that to the curb? And no, that sport is not a good enough reason to be like, yeah, let's still be friends. So no, you're not the jerk for trying to draw a line in the sand because your husband's behavior, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate. My job forced me to be a part of a meeting group that I really did not want to be a part of. So I maliciously complied and showed up, but instead of actually going along with what they were doing, I decided to be the biggest nuisance on planet Earth, pointing out every single problem I could possibly spot and frustrating these people to no end, resulting in me getting kicked out of this group. Here's what happened. So when I was working IT at the college, it had been decided that the world would be a better place if two of our campuses were merged into one. They were only a mile apart and the new site was 3 miles away, so there wasn't a big location issue. Sure, some people had a harder commute, but some got an easier commute. It's kind of equitable when you think about it. To make the new build a rousing success, there would be consultations and people would be consulted and everyone would be listened to. Yeah, you know that didn't happen without me telling you, don't you? Each department was to send a representative to the new build consultation group, and despite my best efforts to stay quiet or even absent every time the subject of a mandatory volunteer came up, I basically got volunteered to go and do this. So me and all of my mid-level position glory was to represent IT. So okay, fine. I really didn't want to take part in a farce of a consultation, so all the mistakes could be labeled as unforeseeable. But if you're going to send a professional fault finder to a consultation, I hope you have a full load of ink in that pen, because trust me, you're gonna need it. The meeting comprised of 5 people from different departments, as well as Susan, who worked in facilities, who had been given the job of managing the new builds. No one seemed to think that there was a significant difference between booking rooms for training courses, making sure coffee and lunch breaks were catered, and making a multi-million-dollar building come into existence, as well as transfer hundreds of staff and thousands of students over to it. After introductions, top of the agenda was parking. And to be fair, I think it was smart to start with a contentious issue. Parking was already a problem, and the rumor was that there would be less parking at the new site. And this would be solved apparently by not having any student parking, ignoring the inconvenience this would cause, and questions over the public transport suitability. There was already not enough staff parking, so how does screwing over another group help us out? After a bit of vague details about somehow rewarding car sharing, we were furnished with the magnum opus of technology that would solve all of our issues. A gate with number plate recognition. This would stop all those pesky outsiders from coming over here and stealing all our spots, which is something that had never been an issue. Now, I had been quiet until this point as I thought it all had been a bit daft, and I was formulating a plan out of the job anyways, so these issues were unlikely to affect me much. But now that we had hit on some technology, I felt the need to chime in. I let the others ask their questions to understand how a plate number recognition gate works. For those not aware, it's a barrier with a camera. When you pull up, it reads the number plate on the front of your car, and for reference, all cars have a very standardized white front number plate in the United Kingdom. It translates that picture into numbers and letters, looks it up in the database, and if it finds a match, it opens the barrier. Once everybody understood the technology, I opened up with a problem in their happy empath-only thinking. I said to them, okay, so Jan and I, pointing my thumb at the unsuspecting woman sitting next to me, car share every day and she drives. But today her car is broken, so we take mine. What happens when we get to the gate? Susan looks at me and says, what do you mean? I say to her, well, my number plate won't be in the system, so what happens? Susan responds by saying, well, it could be even if you don't drive normally. I say to her, well, that assumes a level of preparation. What if it's an emergency? Susan then says, well, there will be a call button. You can speak to someone to let you in. Now, I ignored the likelihood of that call system being managed and instead focused on the loophole that she had just opened. I say to her, so I'll just be led into this carefully controlled car park with limited spaces based on my say-so? Susan stammers for a bit, and then I say, and you said I could have my number plate in the system, right? Susan said yes, please to not be talking about the space issue again. But I looked at her and I said, okay, which one? Susan looked at me and said, which what? But I responded by saying, which number plate? I have two. And when Susan clarified that yes, I do, she asked me why, and I said, because it's illegal to use the same number plate on different vehicles. Susan then said, oh, right. I then responded by saying, so can the system cope with more than one number plate? And all Susan said was, well, I'll check on that. And while she took a note about the multiple vehicle issue, I reloaded with another problem. I said to her, okay, great. What if my other vehicle is a motorbike? Susan then said, well, I don't think that will be a problem. But I explained that I'm guessing the camera's on the gate and looking at the front. Susan said, well, yes. And I obviously had to clarify, so I said, well, motorbikes don't have front number plates. How will it read it and let me in? Susan then said, I'll check. And then she wrote another note and brought the meeting to an end. Well, a few weeks later, I heard from someone that there was going to be another new build consultation group meeting, but this time I had not been invited. So I'm honestly so glad I got out of that stupid meeting because trust me, I didn't want to be there in the first place. Oh my gosh, I love this so much because you literally pointed out all the problems in their system that they clearly were not ready for. So good for you for getting out of this meeting because it does sound incredibly boring and I would not want to do that myself. My entitled neighbor demands that I stop using my own Wi-Fi because according to her, it's distracting and destroying her plants. And once I heard that, I've honestly never laughed harder in my life. Here's how it went down. So I live in a townhouse complex with paper-thin walls and a whole bunch of colorful personalities. One of them is my neighbor, a woman in her late 50s, who wears tie-dye shirts every day, insists that she has a telepathic connection with crystals, and once told me that my aura was too digital. I'm usually sitting out front on my phone with my computer relaxing, and I suppose that's why she feels I'm too digital, but I don't really know. But honestly, her latest stunt truly took the cake. Last week, she knocked on my door holding a small potted plant in one hand and a printout of what looked like a hand-drawn diagram of a Wi-Fi signal in the other, and she told me that we needed to talk about my router. And honestly, I was so confused. She then explained that my Wi-Fi was disrupting the vibrational energy of her succulents. She then pointed to the drawing, which honestly looked like a sad jellyfish, and said the signal beamed directly through our shared wall and bombarded her plants non-stop. According to her, the plants were spiritually wilting because they thought the Wi-Fi was sunlight, but it wasn't. And the best part about it is that her plants were in a dark hallway with no natural light. She claimed they had been fine until I got a new modem and then gave me two options. Either turn off my Wi-Fi every night between 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the morning, which is apparently the plant's rest hours, or let her share my Wi-Fi and move the router into her unit so she could regulate the signal properly. I laughed because I thought she was joking, but apparently she wasn't. She then stormed off as I laughed at her, and I'm still currently waiting to see what might come out of this. Oh my god, that is crazy. Like, that's like grade A crazy. She literally tried to use her weird vibrational energies to try and get your Wi-Fi password. And this, by the way, has nothing to do with the plants. She just wants Wi-Fi. You should either turn it off or give it to me and I'll monitor it. It's like, dude, I don't know what other plants you've been consuming, if you know what I mean, but you might want to cut loose of that because it's clearly clouding your third eye or whatever. Like, dude, this lady's insane. So yeah, I love the fact that you laughed at her because this lady deserves to be laughed at. Am I overreacting to my wife's affair as she's been openly cheating on me with another man? Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I feel like a toddler throwing a temper tantrum, asking my wife why over and over again. Why would you do this to me, to us, to our family? Well, apparently my wife didn't feel loved. She said I didn't do much. She said she cheated because she changed more diapers than I did. She cheated because she cooked more than I did. She cheated because she cleaned up more than I did, and she woke up more nights to tend to our babies than I did. Not to mention walk the dogs way more than I did. My wife was a stay-at-home mom for about a year, and now she works part-time. I try my best. I work 48 hours a week. It's really hard to do everything at home when you work that much outside of the house compared to my wife's 4 hours a day at work. And for reference, we have a 2-year-old and an 8-month-old. I found out most of this information from going through my wife's phone. My wife ended up cheating on me with a man that she met at a children's group. She cheated on me with a single dad. She was immediately attracted to him because he was the only dad at the event. I mean, his wife wife passed away, and my wife was drawn to him for being a devoted dad. He had the time to go to these events and be a dad and work at the same time because he has involved grandparents that help out a lot. My wife would go over to his house with our kids, and I'm sure everyone's gonna ask why didn't I have my kids say anything to me? But what are they gonna do? One's 8 months old and the other one's 2. The 2-year-old has a speech delay and he can only say 2 words. My kids are too small to understand what's going on. They don't automatically think I see a different man and that means mommy is cheating. They don't understand any of that, and their memories don't work like that either. I'm sure my wife isn't doing anything nasty with this guy in front of my kids, and she keeps it friendly when my wife is around the kids in front of this man, but this is how my wife and this guy are spending so much time together too. She also lies when she says she's going somewhere and leaves the kids with me and goes out with her boyfriend. They text all the time, and that's really what made me think that something is going on, because she was just on her phone way too much. My wife says that she's not sorry for cheating on me, and I deserved it by being such an absentee father. She says that my 2-year-old prefers mom and never goes to dad, and that's because my 2-year-old doesn't know me like that, and how the kids only know their mother, and how I'm just gonna get stripped away all my parental rights when she leaves me for her boyfriend, since that's the kind of state we live in too. She told me that she fell in love with the other man, and that's what hurts the most out of all of this. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh man, there's no good excuse for your wife cheating on you. I'm sorry. She could say all this stuff and be like, this is your fault. But at the end of the day, she's the one that cheated. You didn't cheat. You've been working your butt off. Literally working 48 hours a week, trying your very best. And she goes behind your back and somehow says, oh yeah, I'm cheating, but it's your fault that I'm cheating. I fell in love with someone else. This is your fault. And it's like, no, dude, if you had any self-respect, you'd be working on your marriage. So no, you're not overreacting. I'd be so pissed off and so upset as well, because your wife is the one who's throwing away everything that you guys have built together, and that is absolutely not your fault. My toxic entitled classmate humiliated me in front of the entire class. So I waited patiently and eventually got my revenge in such a way that quite literally left her speechless, as she never spoke to me ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that me and this other person were never really friends. We were just kind of classmates who sat near each other, we swapped jokes when it suited her, and ignored each other the rest of the time. Well, one day in class, I said something dumb, not even trying to be funny. I was legitimately just trying to be honest, and she saw an opening. In a loud voice with a smug grin in front of the entire class, she said to me, oh my god, are you actually that stupid? Well, this is when all the attention and laughter got pointed at me. The teacher didn't even check it. I just laughed it off, but on the inside, it stung. You know when you replay something later and think, I should have said something back? Well, I didn't. Instead, I waited. A couple of weeks later, we had a group project, and she ended up in mine, not as her first choice. She didn't do much, but she thought that she could still coast off of the work. So when it came time to present, I gave the teacher the version I finished without her part in it. And I also told him that she didn't contribute, and I gave proof. She then looked confused when she didn't get called up, and even more confused when she got marked separately. And she was probably the most confused when she asked if I said anything, and I just said, well, I didn't think you wanted my input. You said I was stupid, remember? I didn't make a scene, I didn't raise my voice, but I still heard someone say dang from the back of the room, and it was so sweet. She then never spoke to me ever again, but it feels good knowing that I got the last word. Okay, I'm gonna say it, I hate people like this. I hate people who only call you out to try and embarrass you, and they're not actually your friend. Seriously, these people suck. They look for reasons to complain about you, and chances are they're probably talking bad about you behind your back. Like, let's be honest, this lady probably fits the bill. She's probably gossiping about everybody. And yeah, she got that momentary pleasure of calling you out and be like, oh my god, you're so stupid. But I just love the fact that you got that last laugh. You bided your time and waited for the perfect time to strike, and my god, did it pay off wonderfully. So good for you, because that lady sounds like she absolutely deserves it. Am I the jerk for exposing my sister's fake cancer diagnosis to our parents after she refused to come clean herself? Because right now she's saying that I ruined her life, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, I just found out that my sister, who has been telling my whole family she has cancer for the last 8 months, has been lying about all of it. She shaved her head, she said she was doing chemo, and even had our parents move in to help her through the treatment. I started to have doubt when, besides also staying out late relatively frequently, she would never let anyone attend appointments with her, and she clearly had way too much energy for someone going through aggressive chemotherapy. Last week, I ran into the office manager of my sister's oncologist at a coffee shop, and I casually mentioned my sister, and the office manager was confused. She had no idea who I was talking about. I then did some digging through doctors, and I spoke to my sister about what I learned, and she eventually broke down and spilled her guts. It turns out she fabricated the whole story because she was in over her head with debt and wasn't able to afford her apartment anymore. The cancer story got our parents to move in, and she could then stop paying her bills. Well, when I heard this, I was furious. I told her she had 24 hours to tell our parents the truth or I would. She asked me not to tell them because it would ruin her relationship with them. Well, wouldn't you guess it, she didn't say a single thing. So yesterday I took everything to our parents. And as you can probably imagine, our parents were heartbroken. My sister is now acting like I had no right to out her, and she didn't even say this part to our parents, but she was going to stage a miraculous recovery next month. She said that I ruined her life and that families should be trying to defend each other rather than expose each other. So am I the jerk for exposing my sister for faking her cancer diagnosis? Because right now I don't know what to do. Dude, this is crazy. Are you kidding me right now? Your sister's a terrible person. Because if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Like seriously, she's faking cancer to get her parents to pay for everything. Like that is unacceptable, and I don't blame you for exposing her because this is absolutely unacceptable. My entitled mom thinks that I'm staying with my boyfriend all because I'm taking what I can get, claiming that my boyfriend will not provide a future for me and that I am wasting my time. And despite the fact that I've tried multiple times to have a conversation with my mom, she still refuses to listen, leaving me at my breaking point, as right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old female and I've been dating my boyfriend for the past 4 years. I never felt comfortable coming to my parents and telling them that we were dating because when I first brought it up to my mother at 16, she said she was not comfortable with her 16-year-old daughter dating. She also thought I was dating him because other people were dating at the time, and she saw it as me jumping on a trend, which are her exact words. Then prom came around a year or so later, and my mom got to meet him in person. We didn't plan to coordinate outfits, and we just went dressed as we like. We enjoyed ourselves and we had a great time. My boyfriend even talked to my mom and said that she was really nice to him, and he felt hopeful that he might actually have a chance with my mom coming around to him. Well, instead, after she went home, she criticized his appearance and talked trash on him instead of saying something nice about him. Even my aunt had to tell her that it wasn't that serious, and she was being way too harsh. I found this out from my younger siblings after the fact, and my boyfriend and I were crushed. Fast forward a few months ago, where I finally worked up the courage to tell them that I am dating him. Now, my father didn't say much. He just asked the basics about what he does and what he looks like, whereas my mom didn't really ask much about him, but emphasized that I need to focus on my degree in college and not to focus too much on men and get distracted. Now, the entire summer, they did not ask a thing about him and I, and my mom always asked how my friends were doing ever since I was young, so I thought he was just gonna be an addition to her questions. Instead, she asked about my friends, even one that she never met, but nothing about my boyfriend. By this point, my boyfriend and I are planning on living together after college, talking about marriage, kids, how we would handle the bills, etc. So to see that they don't care about someone who is so deeply involved in my life up to this point just seriously hurt me, and I decided to confront them about it. And what happened next honestly just blew my mind. I asked my parents if they cared if I mentioned my boyfriend to them, and my father said that he was just focused on my education and that dating and school does not mix. I mentioned that we've been doing this for the past 4 years and it's been working really well, but when I said that, he didn't really have anything to say, and my mom did not want to get into it at the time, but we talked about it 2 days later. Well, my mom said that she was not impressed with his line of work and that he should be doing better. She asked me what he's doing to work on it, and I said he's trying and he just needs time to figure out if he wants to go to college or stay in his line of work because he doesn't have the support from his family financially like I do. For reference, my boyfriend does work at a warehouse. She judged his family for not helping him in the way that they do for their family, and that he needs to have some kind of formal education. Now, by this point, I didn't elaborate, and I just said things as plainly as I could because I did not want to give her too much information or details. I feel like it's our business, and she doesn't need to know everything. My mom also said that she expected better of me. She asked me if I wasn't interested in anyone else, and I could look around and see if I truly wanted to settle down so young with my boyfriend instead of finding someone better, because apparently my feelings could change for him, and then I would be stuck with him. She even said that she raised me to be a certain way and expected me to have higher standards than be with someone like him. She assumed that I thought that I had low self-esteem and was just settling with him because she believed that I felt like he was all I could get. And again, this is her actual words that she said to me. And when she said this, I was shocked and I felt disrespected even up until now. She then asked if I even knew how expensive things were. And I said, yes, we've talked about living together after I'm done with school. And trust me, she was shocked to hear that. Like, she literally couldn't fathom me moving out to live with my boyfriend of 4 years. She was also shocked to hear that I was hanging out with him while I'm at school and inviting him to my place or even going to his. She felt like I was being sneaky, all because I never told her about any of these things, and she thinks that I'm going to go behind her back and drop out because that's what my older sister did. But despite me explaining that I want my degree and he won't mooch off of me, she still didn't believe me. She wrapped it up by saying that if he wants to be in my life, he needs to do better and actually get a career to provide for me because times and things are tough and I do not need to struggle in life. So right now I feel so aggravated and alone. My younger siblings, my friend, and my boyfriend are on my side, but I just want to hear a nuanced answer to see if I'm in the wrong or if I'm misinterpreting something as well. I tried to keep it as cut and dry as possible, which led to this being super long, but I still feel like I didn't cover everything. What should I do? Honestly, I can kind of understand your mom's concerns, but the fact that she's dismissing your boyfriend entirely and not even giving him a chance is honestly so disrespectful. Like, for starters, he is only 19 years old, so there is a lot of time for him to figure his life out and get a career going. So for her to be like, wow, I can't believe you want to live with him, while also implying that you're only settling because you can't get anyone else, like, all of that is so rude and disrespectful and completely inappropriate. So in my opinion, I think you have every right to say that you want to live with your boyfriend. The two of you clearly love each other, and it sounds like the two of you want to figure this out together. And it's also not as if you can't find someone else if this doesn't work out. Like, the way your mom is talking to you is so definitive, it's honestly not even funny. It's mostly just annoying and incredibly frustrating. So honestly, I think your mom is definitely the jerk here because the way she's acting is incredibly entitled. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My longtime friend looked after my house and my dogs while I was overseas on holiday with my fiance, but when we came back, the house was very messy, to the point where I'm incredibly frustrated that he didn't do a better job of keeping after things, and I'm now wondering if I need to have a conversation with him about the way he treated my house. Here's what happened. So my fiance and I just took a 6-week holiday overseas, and a couple months before we left, we asked my close and long-term friend if he could house sit and look after our 2 dogs. He said no problem, and we wanted him to do it as I've always thought that he's been a clean and responsible person. Also, he is currently dealing with some family sickness issues, and him staying at our house also meant that he would be much closer to the people important to him. But when we returned, we found a pretty large mess, and also some other weird things, despite him not telling me about any issues besides the vet visit, which is explained below. Now, before I go into detail, I am still super appreciative of him for still looking after the house and the dogs. And also, I think it is important to note that one of the dogs had to go to the vet a week before we got back, as she got a pretty bad cut on her foot, and he dealt with that properly. And just to be clear, the dog issue is not his fault. It was honestly just something that happened out of nowhere. So we left him with some important notes on what to do with the dogs and some general house stuff. I was also reachable the whole time overseas and checked in with him a few times just to see how things were, and each time he said everything was fine. We did as much as we could before we left, just to make his life as easy as possible. We made the house spotless, stocked up on dog food, treats, toys, left snacks and drinks, cleaned the bed sheets and the towels, and everything else that we could think of. Before we left, he came over and ran through all the important stuff in person. Now, some of the stuff was that we know the dogs can make a mess, as one of them sheds like crazy, and that we have a broom to give the main floor a quick sweep, and we do that once every day or two. Also, when it is rainy, we put down towels where the dogs come in and out just to stop them from making too much of a mess. This is important due to the time of year, and we expected there to be a lot of rain whilst we were away. Well, when we got home, it looked like he had not cleaned the floor in at least 3 to 4 weeks, and found that he had used the vacuum at some point, but didn't empty it, and it just jammed up. We also found some dried up blood on the floor from when the dog had her little accident. There was also a lot of dirt in general, and some couch cushions had to be thrown away as they were far too gone, and they were also super cheap, so it wasn't really a problem. But honestly, that's kind of okay, and it really is a situation where we think, no worries, it's our dog making the mess, so it's no biggie, and we can just clean all of that up. But then there's some weird things that definitely was not caused by our dogs. We first found that he had trimmed his beard in our in-suite and left hair all through the sink, and we're not sure why he was using our in-suite, as he had had a full bathroom to use. He left the toilet in not a terrible state, but it definitely had not been cleaned at all, and we also found toenails by the bedside table in the room that he was staying in, and we realized we're missing some glasses and bowls. A vegetable peeler was broken. Our brand new washing machine has a damaged seal inside, so it's now leaking and needs to be fixed. He left a lot of cookware that was not cleaned properly, and our air fryer drawers in a terrible state. The power to the oven was tripped off, but the dial was still on. And this is all among some other very minor stuff that just kind of adds up. up. But the largest issue though is that as we explained to him, my fiance is severely allergic to nuts and he cannot eat that product in our house. Well, we found a box of unopened cereal in the cupboard with nuts, and when I asked him about this, he said he brought it and realized what he did, so he didn't open it, but I'm not sure why he didn't just take it with him, along with a few other food items that he had bought. Also, when I emptied the garbage, I found a wrapper at the bottom of the bin, not in the liner itself, for a protein bar with peanuts. Unfortunately, during our trip, my fiance started experiencing bad anxiety over food and is now anxious at home because we can't be sure that he didn't have things with nuts in the house, and especially in the cookware. Also, just as a note, he left the house before we got back, as we got home at around 11 o'clock p.m. So again, we don't care about anything related to the dogs making a mess, but I feel like he should have at least cleaned up after himself properly. So anyways, I have spoken to my fiance at length about this, and my fiance believes that it isn't worth bringing up and to leave it be and accept that he did the most important things when it comes to looking after the dogs. However, I am torn because he is supposed to be in the bridal party at our upcoming wedding, which is 8 months away, and I feel a bit frustrated with how he had left the house. My fiance-to-be said that this is probably an issue with my expectations being too high, especially with what he was going to do, and I accept and agree with that, and maybe he just isn't the cleanest person I thought he was. However, I'm also slightly concerned that maybe his mental health has declined, and this is a part of the reason for his behavior. So at this point, I don't really know whether to bring it up or not, because all of this is seriously still so frustrating. Honestly, I want to first say that I completely understand where you're coming from. He made a mess, and he allowed a mess to get out of control pretty quickly. And sure, maybe the dogs was like a losing battle, so he kind of gave up, but for him to be eating peanuts in your house and to be so messy and just leave it like that in my opinion is so unacceptable. There is no good excuse for that, and he seriously should have cleaned up after himself. Like, there really is no good excuse in that regard. But in my opinion, when it comes to like actually talking to him about this, I unfortunately just don't even think it's worth the time. I think your fiance might be right on this regard, because honestly, this might be just one of those like, okay, lesson learned, we will just never let him watch our house ever again. Because sure, he watched the house and he kept the dog safe, but it sounds like after the second week of being there, he got lazy and just didn't take care of things in the way that he should have. So in my opinion, I don't think it's worth a conversation, because I think it's only going to cause more problems than any kind of good. My entitled managers don't realize how valuable I am to their company, since I'm the sole reason why we have made more money than we've ever made in years. But after I make one simple request after years of working there, these people deny it and humiliate me, saying that if I'm unsatisfied, then I can look elsewhere for my employment. So I decided to maliciously comply, and as a result of my leaving, this company absolutely tanked, resulting in their future practically being on the line. Here's what happened. Okay, so at the end of my studies, I signed a contract for the job I wanted before even finishing my schooling. I wasn't rushed, and I pretty much interviewed with 5 jobs, with my resume sent out to 7 places and 4 propositions coming back. The team I joined was 6 engineers, including me specializing in existing structures. Basically, if a bridge or a dam has a crack, they call us to come see on site and run calculation to see if everything is fine or not. Fast forward a year and I integrated quite well. I grew in competence and maturity, and after the second, I have gone from the guy asking questions to the guy they came to when people needed answers. All was well. I got raises every year and bonuses with compliments. It was all really good stuff. Well, things began to go bad after the 3rd year. At the 3rd year, I was more or less the go-to guy for complex projects, as well as when people didn't find answers. As such, I asked to move forward from project manager to a more back position that we will call technical referent. Basically, you keep producing as usual, but some of your time is dedicated to standard compliance for the team and answering deeper subjects that are passed through the year. It is not something that existed in this firm, but exists in a lot of other firms around here. I proposed this because at the time, the team had grown to 12 people. Thanks to my participation in more complex projects, we even had grown our sales by 30% in 3 years, and we had raised more people as project managers. But as a consequence, with basically 2 people taking the part I couldn't do when becoming a referent, it became a new possibility. Even my chief and the chief of my chief told me and wrote in my yearly review that a lot of the projects we had at the time were because I was here. Anyways, to become a technical referent, I told them I would need to get some formations to complete my technical knowledge, for which I proposed the subjects myself and even got pricing and contact for institutions. Well, they agreed, both in oral and writing, but said that it might take some time. But they are interested in creating this position in the firm, and I think at this point you can begin to imagine where this might be going. As the 4th year rolled around, I was becoming more and more essential to the team. I was teaching and testing newcomers. Everyone came to me asking questions instead of going to the chief, and even the chief himself came to me. He even told me that he didn't even comprehend some of the technical reports as well as the calculations that I made. Basically, I became the go-to guy when we were blocked or at a loss. Now, seeing that nothing was happening regarding the formations that I asked for and the position, I asked to see someone from HR to discuss my career plan. Well, the HR interview was a dumpster fire. They got my name wrong, they had never heard of me, they didn't get my file, absolutely nothing. So the discussion was rather void and short. Now, to give you an idea, the firm is quite big here for our branch of the trade, maybe 500 people in total, with 6 HR people at the time for all of us. And funny enough, the HR that I saw was the one who recruited me. Around came the yearly interview with my chief, and I pretty much said I was beginning to have some doubts about their will to make me evolve. Now, they did give me a raise and a bonus, and told me that they would do everything necessary to make me go to the next level. Now, at my 5th year, 3 people left, 2 for geographical reasons to reunite with family, and 1 because they realized they technically couldn't follow the team and the projects we worked on. And as you can probably guess, nothing happened for me. I was more or less one of the 2 pillars of our team, but no formations, no evolution, no nothing. I even had to fight to get a specialized computer for calculations for my job. Anyways, I asked to see my chief, and I basically told him that it's been 2 years and nothing has been done, so please do something, anything. After this though, they asked for a meeting with the chief of my chief, as well as 2 others from other divisions. Now, the first thing in the meeting is that the chief of my chief says, "So I didn't read your file and I'm not aware of what is asked, so please explain it again." Now, for reference, this guy manages 50 people, so I think to myself, fine, and I just go ahead and explain. After explaining, I was more or less crushed by 2 of them for 1 hour, while my chief sat there and said nothing. Basically, I didn't make any effort. It is my job to answer everyone. I was asking too much and stuff like that. Now, to be true, at the 10th minute, I just shut my brain off, and at the end, I pretty much told them that if nothing is done, I would begin to look elsewhere, and many of the team which are looking at this situation might follow me. They answer that I should look elsewhere if not satisfied, but they will see to meet my demands, which is quite a contradiction. Cue now 4 months later, where I was more or less treated as if I was sick, and I would transmit it to them by hierarchy. I was told on multiple times the grass is not greener elsewhere. You might not find something better, but you might still want to look, and all the other nice things that you can imagine to keep someone. I get along with everyone in the team. All of them were quite irritated with what was happening for me. That is, except for my chief, who was indifferent. Now, as a side note, most of them were taught by me at this point, with their skills inherited from me as well. And because I was fed up with the hierarchy, I did begin the search, thinking nothing would move. And indeed, nothing did move. I sent out 5 resumes, I interviewed for 3, and I got 2 propositions, with me finally accepting 1. Before going, I told them that even if the grass is not always greener elsewhere, you won't keep someone by threatening them, and that people might follow what I've done if they are not able to recognize their own talents. I got a nice job now that's much more laid back, it has less hours, and it's a 10% raise. There's also more advantages, and a national referent for my post, and much more. Well, this is when the fallout starts to happen. 2 people followed me in resigning, both 3 and 6 months later, because they lost trust in the firm with what happened to me. From the 6 people who left, 3 of them told me that they would leave because of what happened, and from what they said to me, the atmosphere there is now completely gone. They don't have anyone to turn to for technical questions, and there's no fun discussion at the job, no more technical discussions, and it is basically a skeleton crew waiting to find better. To give you an idea, those guys are good. I tried to recruit 2 of them myself, but was refused because it was too far for their family, which is understandable. I do try to send them job offerings that I hear about, and I try to recommend them. When they are gone, the person with the most experience in the division, except for the chief, would have about 10 months experience, and the medium experience would be about 5 months. They lost big contracts that I carried, and some clients even called me personally to ask what happened and said they will give them the benefit of the doubt, but they told me they didn't trust my chief because he screwed me over in the past. I went back some time ago to say hi, and I was told that sales have gone back to the level 5 years ago before I was in the firm, and at the time, they had a 35% decrease in sales in 9 months, while also having 3 different resignations in the process. Even my now past chief told me that they now don't even try to answer projects that involve any calculations that seem a bit hard because they don't have the competence now that I'm gone. And now the future for the division seems hazy because they don't know where to stand because nobody knows what they're doing. Now, this was quite some time ago, but I'm happy to get this off my my chest. For newly hires and first job people, please begin to recognize your worth as soon as you can. It will help you so much to evolve and know firsthand when you are being screwed. Wow, what a story. This honestly is so crazy to me. This is a classic situation where these people did not know who they were losing. Like literally, the guy in this story is like the man that people go to. He quickly became that go-to person, and he practically carried their sales department because he was the guy that literally knew how to do everything. So the fact that HR and your manager and your chief, or whatever you want to call him, would sit there and not advocate for you, or at least try to get something going for you where your career path is expansive and you can get a lot of things done, like that is crazy to me. They willingly gave up one of their best employees all because they didn't want to like expand your opportunities. And that is crazy to me. There's no reason for that. And it's a shame because they only realize your value as soon as you left. And I'm kind of glad that you left too, because you have a job where you get paid more but work less. And I don't know about you, but I think that is definitely the dream. So truly, with all things considered, you not only prove that you are a high value employee to these idiotic HR managers, but you also prove that yes, the grass absolutely can be greener on the other side. My entitled mother has hated me ever since I was born, all because I wasn't a girl, leaving me feeling incredibly alone for most of my life, leaving me feeling very frustrated and very bitter. And now that I've called her out in front of the entire family and basically treats my little sister better than I ever would be treated, I'm now being told that I'm the jerk and that I need to be more understanding about my mom's gender disappointment when it comes to me. Here's what happened. To start things off, my mom never wanted a boy. She always wanted girls. And apparently her dream was to have 4 daughters, but she had me first. I'm a 16-year-old male, and I have seen photos and videos of the day I was born, and she cried hysterically when they told her that I was a boy. Then she refused to hold me. After we were cleaned up, she cried about not using the name that she had chosen and said that she didn't know how to move on from it. And by the way, all of this was caught on camera. Eventually, my paternal grandmother took me, and she was the person to hold me in photos and videos taken during the rest of our hospital stay. Now, my paternal grandmother was my sole parental figure in the first 8 years of my life. She took care of me, and I spent so much time at her house, and sometimes I was there for weeks. But unfortunately, she then had a brain bleed and she passed away. So I was left with my mom, who wanted girls and not a boy, and a dad who wanted to be a provider and nothing more. My mom then had my sister, who we will call Lily, 2 years after me. So my mom got her girl and Lily got all of the attention. And even though I got my grandmother until I was 8 years old, after that I had nobody. My mom and Lily are super close, and mom adores Lily. She got the bigger bedroom, she gets the gifts, and she gets all her favorite snacks. She gets to do all the extracurricular activities that she could ever want to do, and her birthdays are huge parties with massive gifts. And when Christmas rolls around, she gets a minimum of 25 gifts from my mom alone, while my mom gets me like 1. And it's never anything that I would like or even want in the first place, but I guess it's the thought that counts, even though there was zero thought put into this. My mom's family don't act too interested in making up for her lack of parental love, and in the last couple of years, my mom and I have argued more, and I give her a hard time, and my dad's never around to give him one. But when it comes to my mom, well, if she wants to ignore me, then she can hear how awful it is. And if she wants to treat my sister like a perfect angel, then she can definitely hear about it. And my mom has even mentioned how I ruined her dream of having 4 daughters. We were at mom's parents' house Friday, and mom was gushing about Lily doing good on a project, as well as the scooter that she got Lily to help her get around easier. She even got Lily a custom helmet and even got a personalized lock for her scooter. She couldn't stop talking about it, and I told her she really does love to shower her favorite in gifts and praise. Well, my mom's family told me that I should take it easier on her, and actually said that I should understand because we had some little troubles because of my mom's gender disappointment. But you know what? I told them that I don't owe her anything, all because of her gender disappointment, and that I didn't ask to be born to a mom who only wanted daughters. Well, they told me I lacked adult understanding and compassion, and I'm honestly just so done. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. Your extended family and your mom are insane for trying to pin this on you. Why should you have to walk on eggshells all because your mom is disappointed that you're not a girl? Like, that is crazy in my opinion, and there's no good excuse for that. If they want to talk about the little troubles that they had, then let's talk about the first 8 years of your life. Your grandmother practically raised you, and even your own mother wouldn't hold you in the hospital. Like, seriously, what's going on right now? This behavior is so unacceptable, it's not even funny. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. You quite literally just want to be treated equally to your sister, and in fact, you just want parents that care about you, instead of dealing with this weird grudge that your mom has towards you you just because you're a boy, because her behavior is completely irrational and you do not deserve this in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My awful manager decided to fire me and replace me with some young college kid who definitely did not know what he was doing. So I decided to maliciously comply when they told me to take everything that was mine and walk out of the building. Because as a result, they literally had nothing left to run their business, as I was the sole owner of nearly all the equipment they used over the last 5 years. Here's what happened. So this happened a couple of years ago, but I was thinking about it recently. I work for a company doing their media design, namely graphic design, photography, live event AV, video editing, etc. This company held big events, and over my years at the company, I was given more and more unrelated responsibilities until I was doing the jobs of at least 4 people. They also never helped pay for any materials, so all of the necessary media equipment was paid for completely out of pocket. All of them had my name on them to make sure it wouldn't get lost if I lent it out. Over the years, I had accumulated a pretty impressive supply through secondhand purchases, while also watching for deals. By the time I hit my 5th year there, I had thousands of dollars in high-end equipment that was used for almost every part of the organization's promotion and event production. And I think at this point, you can probably see where this is going. One day, I was brought into my boss's office and told that they would be downsizing, and they had found someone fresh out of college with no real life experience too, by the way, that will be taking over my jobs as well as a few others. And when I heard this, I was completely caught off guard. They then had one of the people from corporate follow me to my office to assist in cleaning out all of my stuff. He specifically said, "Take everything that is yours. You won't be coming back." So that's exactly what I did. They clearly expected the usual paper box full of some photos and a plant, but instead I had them hauling crate after crate of our media and our event supplies into my car. I had a 2004 Ford Explorer at the time, and by the time I left, it was filled up to the brim. With every box that we took out of my car, my boss began to get more and more panicked. At one time, he said, you can only take things that are yours." And through my sadness and anger, I was able to find it in me to kindly tell him that every single thing I was taking was mine, and that I kept all receipts if he wanted proof. The final nail in the coffin was when I told him that I would need access to the arena's AV booth, and I would need to get up to the catwalk. I still remember the fear in his eyes. We went and I unplugged all of my cameras that I had been lending to my events team, all of which were clearly marked with my name. I felt like the Grinch just walking around and taking all the random things in the building that had my name on them. Driving away, I was heartbroken that a company I had given 200% to in literally every way possible had picked someone younger and fresh out of college to replace me. But I won't lie, the smugness of watching their face as I stripped that place bare was completely and totally worth it. And looking back on it, that was the worst and most toxic job I've ever had. Now, the company only lasted another year before they folded entirely, and I'd like to believe that I had a hand in that. And to think that if they had just compensated me fairly and purchased the necessary things themselves, instead of forcing me to provide my team with things, they would not have had to start from scratch in the first place. Wow, the management at this team are absolute morons. Here they have a fantastic employee who clearly is good at their job and has been doing this for 5 years. And instead of rewarding them and being like, "Hey, here's a good promotion for you," or even giving them a proper budget so they can buy stuff for the organization, they instead replace them with someone who does not know what they're doing. Like, full stop, across the board, they have no idea what's going on. Like, that, in my opinion, is so toxic it is not even funny. It's an awful precedent to set because the original poster sounds like they really enjoyed working there. They loved being an employee at this business and they really liked watching it shine. So for these people to come in and cut them loose like that, it really is unfair, and they really did spell their own disaster. So good for the original poster for literally just getting their stuff and leaving, because it proved once and for all that you were the reason that they were staying afloat. Am I the jerk for telling my roommate that she is not allowed to leave her partner in the house unattended? Because right now, a majority of the house does not like the way things currently are, and at this point, we seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So me and my roommates moved into a 4-bedroom house 2 months ago. The 4 others lived together for 2 to 3 years, while I lived alone for that time. Their house was not rent controlled, and the landlord was going to double their rent, and I was tired of paying $2,400 per month as a graduate student. So we all decided to move into a 3-story, 4-bedroom house. We have known each other since the first year of university, and 2 of the girls, let's call them Rebecca and Danny, are long-term partners, so they share one room. About 3 months ago, before I lived with them, Macy, the 3rd girl, Carol, started dating a girl by the name of Carol. I found out from Rebecca and Danny that Macy had let Carol, whom Macy had known for maybe about 2 weeks, stay in their apartment alone for a few hours. And when Rebecca and Danny arrived at home, they found their door wide open. Macy also gave Carol the key code to enter their apartment. Since I moved in with them, Carol is often at our house, and it's starting to feel like we have a 6th roommate. Macy has let Carol cook in the kitchen, take Zoom calls in the dining room, and change into different outfits in the living room, all while Macy is somewhere else in the house. Yesterday, Macy let Carol stay at our house while Macy left for 4 hours. Rebecca, Danny, and myself felt uncomfortable with this, as Carol is basically a stranger to us. Carol stayed in Macy's room the majority of the time, but she did use our kitchen briefly. We told Macy that we were uncomfortable with this, but she told us we were being unreasonable. She said she pays for her room, so she should be able to use it however she wants, and that includes leaving a guest alone in her room while she is out of the house. Well, we told her that since the 3 of us, meaning the majority, are uncomfortable with guests being unattended in the house, that she is not allowed to leave Carol alone in her room, and that we would submit official complaints to the landlord if she does it again. Well, Macy is upset with us because she thinks we are being unreasonable, so her and Carol have left to stay at Carol's apartment for a few days. We think it's unfair to leave a stranger alone in our home. What if we had to leave the house while Carol was in our house without Macy? I have valuables and private items in my room that I don't want any guest to find, and Carol already has a history of snooping. It's also uncomfortable to have a guest using your kitchen as if it's theirs, or just coming home to what you believe is an empty house, only to find a surprise person alone in your house. The 5th roommate has also not been home to comment on this situation. So I turn to you, the internet, for any kind of answer. Am I the jerk for telling my roommate that she is not allowed to leave her partner in the house unattended? What should I do? No, I don't think you're a jerk in this situation. If I was in your shoes, I would feel the same way. You guys do not know this lady. She's not paying rent and she's not a roommate. But from the sounds of it, she basically might as well be. Like, I can understand the occasional visit or something like that, but what is currently being described, in my opinion, is just obnoxious. And for me, if there's gonna be a stranger in my house, she could easily rob you, and it kind of seems like she was already snooping at one point. So no, what you're asking is not unreasonable. I think your roommate is absolutely at fault, because the frequency that Carol's at your house alone with you and the rest of your roommates, all without Macy present, in my opinion, is highly inappropriate. Am I the jerk for asking my parents not to invite my brother to any family gatherings, as he constantly treats me like garbage regardless of what's going on? Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm a 26-year-old female, and I did not have a very happy childhood. It could be far worse, of course, but I had an absent father, an unavailable mother, and I dealt with some school bullying. So overall, it was quite typical. Now, my worst bully has always been my brother. He made a point of making me feel small, invisible, unloved, and incompetent for basically my whole life. He was always criticizing and mocking me without any reaction from my parents. I've had self-esteem issues for a while growing up, but I left home, started some therapy, and I got better, a lot better. On my healing journey, I realized that each time I had to see my brother, whether it was Christmas or something like that, it was still terrible. He never stopped the snide remarks, and I never stopped hurting. So I decided the best for my mental health would be to just go completely no contact with him. It took him and my parents 2 years to realize that, so you can tell it was already very low contact to begin with. Well, this is where the main issue comes in. My parents, including those of my partner, are divorced. I would like to still sometimes spend Christmas with them, basically one every 4 years for every parent if we want to be fair. However, I can't go if my brother is also invited, because he will always RSVP super late or change his plans at the last minute. So I can't comfortably plan to go to my dad at a Christmas party if he declined to go, for example, because there is a good chance he would decide last minute to come. So I asked my mom and dad if they would be willing once every 4 years to not invite him so I get to spend time with either of them. Well, both of my parents are calling me a jerk and saying I'm selfish because they can't possibly not invite their son for Christmas. I told them, well, okay, fair enough, then I'll just plan every Christmas with my partner's family, although I am a bit sad and would like a chance to see my extended family, but they are still mad at me though, and want me just to come because my brother won't be there anyways according to them. Well, 2 years ago, I ended up coming to my mom's house, and he decided to come last minute, and I haven't spent Christmas with my dad in 4 years, hence why we're having this discussion in the first place. So am I the jerk for refusing to go if he's invited? Am I in the wrong for even asking my parents not to invite him once every 4 years? What should I do? No, I don't blame you for taking these steps. Your brother clearly has been a menace in your life for long enough, and you're tired of your your mental health falling downhill all because of this guy. Like seriously, why should you have to go to another Christmas party just for him to show up at the last second and treat you like garbage? That definitely does not sound fair, and it's not something I would want to deal with, especially if I was in your shoes. So truly, I think you're doing the right thing by trying to mitigate this situation ahead of time, because the way your brother treats you is absolutely ridiculous. My boyfriend got extremely drunk at my friend's wedding, resulting in him literally embarrassing me and himself in the process. And now I'm considering breaking up with him altogether because this kind of behavior is something that I simply don't want to be around. Here's what happened. So I was a bridesmaid in my friend's wedding this past weekend. She had a very nice reception with an open bar. The bar was open all night, and we even had red and white wine on our tables. Well, my boyfriend, who drinks alcohol shamelessly like it's water, decided not to pace himself and ended up getting extremely drunk by the end of the night. He had several cocktails from the bar and kept pouring himself virtually all the wine from the bottle that was on our table. I was mostly trying to dance with a group on the dance floor and be a bridesmaid, but couldn't help but notice him come back with new drinks or empty the wine bottle on the table. At one point, I sat down and it was just me and him at the table, and he tried to ask me why I wasn't talking to him, why I was ignoring him all night, etc. And he grabbed my arm to try and get me to listen. And I was like, what are you doing? I am a bridesmaid after all. Anyways, he finally leaves in a drunken rage and then waits in his car because surprise, surprise, he can't drive. So then for about an hour and a half, he is texting me and telling me to come outside and talk to him about it. And I'm still helping my friend and trying to enjoy her night with her. So I tell him to Uber and go home, but he doesn't do it. As the night wraps up, I bring my clothing bag out to my car and I see this dude just walking around. He sees me, and when I'm heading back inside, he calls my name. Like, he is so drunk, it's embarrassing. He tries to have a conversation, but he is too wasted, and he tells me that he can't drive. So I tell him to wait in my car and I'll drive us together. 45 minutes later, I come back and my car door is open and he's passed out. He's thrown up and he's on the ground, and he threw up on his suit. I drove him home and I walked him to his door, which he could barely open, and I'm just so upset and embarrassed by him. So I told him that I don't want to be together after that stunt. So I really need to know, am I overreacting in this situation? Did I take things too far by saying that I don't want to be together? What should I do? No, I don't think you overreacted at all, because the way your boyfriend acted at this wedding was so irresponsible. Like seriously, this guy's throwing back all the alcohol he can find around him, and then he gets upset because you're upset, but it's like seriously, why would you not be upset? This behavior is awful, he can't do this. And he's also ignoring the fact that you have responsibilities at this wedding. You are a bridesmaid, you're supposed to help get things together and keep it running. Like, being a bridesmaid really is a big deal, and you shouldn't have to babysit a grown man who literally can't handle himself. Like, this guy got so drunk he vomited all over his suit, and he was wandering around the parking lot like a lost dog. Like, this guy should not be around any alcohol within 10 miles. So no, you did not overreact in this situation. If anything, you reacted perfectly. Like, literally, this is exactly the way you should have handled this, because at the end of the day, his behavior was completely inappropriate, and you did not deserve to have to deal with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for letting my flatmate's car get towed away after she literally blocked the entrance and exit to a car park? Because right now she is furious with me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm currently staying with my family as we've had a bereavement and haven't been home for about 6 days. As far as I was aware, my flatmate wasn't going on any trips while I'm away. A couple days ago, I got a text message from my neighbor asking me to tell my flatmate to move her car as he couldn't get out of our building's car park for work. I told him that I wasn't home, and then I asked him what he meant, and he ended up FaceTiming me and showed me that my flatmate's car was in the space next to the entrance and exit and was sticking out so much that it blocked this entrance and exit more than halfway. Cars could not get in or out of the lot because of this, and her car isn't a small car by any means. It is literally an SUV. I texted her asking her to move her car, and she left me on red for hours. I texted her again during this time and was continuously left on red, and in the end, my neighbor had to get a ride just to go to work. Eventually, I got a reply from her. She said to me, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna be out for a few days." And that was it. She didn't mention anything about her car or acknowledge my message about her car. So I told her she was obstructing the only way in or out of the car park, and I asked her if she could call her sister, who has a spare set of keys to her car, and ask if she could come over and move the car. I was left on red for a few more hours until she finally responded. She said to me, "Oh, she's sick, so she can't do it." And then she didn't respond to any of my following text messages, and I even sent a voicemail when I called. Well, yesterday the same neighbor called me and told me that he had called a tow truck because the car had not moved for days, and it was still obstructing the entrance entrance and exit, and I was pretty pissed off with my flatmate and her lack of care for other people, and I told him to go ahead and let him tow the car. Well, this morning I got a bunch of angry text messages from my flatmate as she cursed me out, calling me every name under the sun. When she was dropped off this morning, my neighbor happened to be out front, and when she saw her car was gone, he explained the situation and that I had told him to go ahead with towing her car. I now feel bad because her car was her only way to get to work, but she was fine to let other people not be able to drive to their work for days. Our friends are saying that I could have come home early, picked up the spare keys from her sister, and moved it myself, but I can't leave my family during a really rough time. So honestly, am I the jerk for letting her car get towed? What should I do? No, you are not responsible at all. Anyone saying that you should have taken time out of your life to move her stupid car when she's the one who left it there on purpose in the first place is completely out of their minds. Like seriously, your family's going through a rough time, and your roommate absolutely knew that she had her car parked incorrectly. She saw the text messages that basically said, hey, you're blocking the entrance. You can't have your car there. You've got to move. But still, she's the one that stuck around and didn't move the car. Like, how is that your fault? Like, at that point, this really is your flatmate's problem. They are the sole reason their car is getting towed. Because if they had been more responsible, they could have gotten somebody to come and take care of their car, but instead they were dismissive and said, oh, I'm going to be out for a few days. And it's like, no, I'm sorry, that is not going to cut it. You need to be a better car owner, and you need to be more responsible for those around you. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because this is quite literally entirely your flatmate's problem. My brother-in-law's new wife is insanely entitled, as she is now demanding that I take down pictures of my late sister, who passed away 3 years ago, claiming that by having pictures of her up in my house, I'm somehow disrespecting my brother-in-law's new wife, while also making it impossible for my nieces and nephews to accept her as their new mom. And at this point, I'm so deeply offended that right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my late sister Anna was married to my best friend Josh, and together they had 2 children. My niece is 9 years old and my nephew is 7. Anna passed away 3 years ago, and Josh remarried 1 year ago, and his current wife is named Hazel. Now, I will confess that it has been awkward and uncomfortable, and my brother-in-law has admitted that he feels it too. We are still close. We're still best friends too, but it's weird and it hurts sometimes to see him with someone else. Now, I'm happy that he's happy, but Anna was my sister, so the emotions are a lot more complex, and thankfully Josh understands. My niece and nephew have struggled to accept Hazel, and my nephew doesn't really remember his mom, but my niece talks about her a lot, and my brother-in-law talks about her too. He has never wanted to forget her or erase her, or even let her memory fade. Hazel and I get along okay. We're not close, and I will admit that we don't really talk or engage much, and I will say there have been some weird moments. She didn't love me and my family being at the wedding or taking care of the kids that day, despite the fact that my brother-in-law asked us to do it, because apparently she had wanted her parents to take care of the kids. She has also said that she finds it weird that I'm Anna's brother. While I struggle with Josh being married to someone who isn't Anna, I'm also very happy for his happiness. Well, a week ago, Hazel and I got into a fight, and it has caused some extra tension. She told me she was uncomfortable in my house, and that I needed to remove the family photos of Anna, Josh, and the kids, as well as Anna and Josh's wedding photos. And she also wanted my wedding photos removed because Anna and Josh were in them too. Now, I laughed at her at first, thinking she couldn't possibly be serious, but much to my shock, she absolutely was. She said that she always looks to see if I still have them, and then said that I should take them down and put up some of them, meaning her and Josh and the kids. She also wanted me to remove the wall of Anna's art in our dining room, and this is different paintings and drawings Anna did for me and us over the years. And then she told me that Anna's dead. Anna is in the past and she is the future. So I responded by saying that Anna is my sister and not her, and I can have photos of my sister in my home if I want to. She then told me that I can't deny her this because I even have childhood photos of Anna on the walls, and she's letting them go, even though she feels they should be gone as well. She said the kids see themselves in her kid photos, and it's making it harder for her to get into their hearts. She told me I have no right to make her so uncomfortable, and I said that she should not be this insanely entitled at the age of 32, that she should be grown enough to know that she can't dictate other people's houses. Josh then finally came in and asked Hazel to go home early, and then he asked me to have the kids 3 days last week too, which we absolutely did. Well, Hazel didn't like it, and she accused me of taking the kids out of spite so I can fill their heads with talks about Anna. Then she swore at me and called me an insensitive jerk. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Oh my god, God, Hazel is the most toxic person on planet Earth. Seriously, let's think about what she's asking right now. She went into your home and said, you need to take down all the photos of your dead sister. Your sister's dead. She's no longer around. I'm the future and you need to put up pictures of me. It's like, lady, who in the world do you think you are? You're not my sister, and at this point, you might as well not be family, because her request right now is absolutely delusional. She's trying to pretend like you having pictures up of your sister is somehow disrespecting her, as well as brainwashing the kids into not accepting Hazel. Like, what in the world is she talking about? That is not what's gonna happen. And this is your home. If you wanted to dedicate your entire house to Anna, then there's nothing Hazel can do about it. Like, she really comes off as this evil stepmother that's clearly trying to replace Anna in some kind of weird way. Like, this is crazy. There's no good excuse for this. And what a horrible thing to say in general. For her to be so dismissive of your sister dying, and for her to be like, wow, I'm the future, Anna's in the past. It's like, are you kidding me right now? Anna passed away 3 years ago. That is most definitely still in recent memory. Even if it happened 15 years ago, there's no reason for her to be like, take down all photos of your sister. It needs to be all about me. So truly, you are not the jerk, and your brother-in-law's wife is absolutely out of her mind insane, because what she's asking of you is so cruel and unusual that she seriously needs to get her priorities straight and fix that awful entitled attitude. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for feeding my sister and giving her food even though my husband doesn't want me to? Because right now he is furious that I'm thinking of her before him, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my sister Kelly's boyfriend is in the hospital undergoing surgery and will not be able to work for a while. Kelly is not her real name. Now, Kelly has been mentioning how stressed they are trying to prepare for this surgery, as well as the loss of income, and she worries that she won't be able to take care of him. Last night, she called to ask if I could walk their dog tomorrow, since she has been cooped up in the house while Kelly works. Now, she will rarely ever ask for a favor, and I could tell she was very upset. We talked a bit more, and I asked if she needed anything I could bring with me when I came over, or even if she had eaten anything. It was then that she started crying and said that she burnt her last few eggs that morning and couldn't afford anything other than ramen, but she would be okay. She would work extra and figure it out. And when I heard that, my heart broke a little. I remember being so hungry living in my car in my late teens, and then struggling with my husband in our 20s with young kids. I didn't have anyone to help me through my tough times, and I don't want her to ever feel so alone. Now, we are not rich, but we are well enough off that we can afford what we need with some extras. I told Kelly I'd never let her starve, and I asked if she had any requests that I could make for her. Simple things like that will be offered to anyone that's going through a hard time, and I would do it without a second thought. She put up resistance, but said that she would take anything I was willing to give. So that night, I Ubered her dinner since I couldn't make it over, but my husband seemed upset about it and said that it was nothing when I asked if he was okay and why he was so upset. I eventually let it go, as he tends to become more upset the more that you push. I made extra dinner, extra muffins, and decided that I would spend $100 on staple foods, as well as a toy for the dog, since we had a little bit of extra cash this month. Well, when my husband came out of our bedroom from playing Xbox after the kids were in bed and saw me organizing the things that I bought, as well as writing instructions for easy recipes, he was pissed and went off. He started saying, "She never helped you like this. Why would you do all this stuff for her?" But I told him, well, she was a child when I was younger. How would she have ever helped me out? Even if that was true, that doesn't matter. Nobody deserves to go hungry, especially not family and friends. We then went back and forth, eventually with him saying, "I wasted my time and money on someone who doesn't deserve all of this. What about us? What if I want banana bread? You put nuts in it. I don't like nuts." So I responded by saying that he was being incredibly selfish. We have plenty to eat. I made a batch without nuts for him, and there's more of everything for the family. If he would just look and see what I did, I would understand if we were struggling, but I'm not going to sit idly by while Kelly goes hungry because you don't like me spending time caring for someone other than you. Well, after I said that, he stomped off and has refused to come out of our bedroom all day, besides to grab some snacks, ignoring all the food that I've made. I know he wants to apologize, but it all just feels so wrong. So seriously, am I the jerk for feeding my sister and calling my husband selfish? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. No, of course you're not the jerk. Your husband is being completely irrational. Why does he care about what you do and don't do for your family members, let alone feed somebody who's in dire straits? Like, that's insane, and it's so weird to me. And And it also sounds like this doesn't cut into anybody's budget, so he is literally complaining about nothing. And that, in my opinion, is so unfair. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, and I think what you're doing for Kelly is incredibly kind and very considerate. Am I the jerk for telling a coworker that it was completely justified that she got sent home early from the office after she snuck in her dog, which is something that is absolutely against the rules? Here's what happened. Okay, so today at the office, a woman walked in with a fairly big dog who did not seem very well trained. It was very obviously pulling on the leash and kept trying to approach different people. So I expressed my doubts that this dog was a service animal. Now, seeing as this was the office where pets are not allowed, that meant I expressed my doubts this dog was even allowed to be there in the first place. Now, I did not make a problem of it, and I didn't go over to the reception to report it or anything like that. I simply mentioned it and moved on. Well, a coworker heard me and mentioned that she had also brought in a dog last week because it couldn't be left alone and that she was sent out of the building. I told her that non-service animals didn't belong here, so if she truly brought in a dog, then it was justified that they sent her away. Well, she seemed to get annoyed and said back that the dog hadn't hurt anybody, and if she was expecting to be at the office, she didn't really have a choice. Now, let me just say that I don't dislike animals, but I do hate people who act entitled to bring their animals everywhere. I have an allergy for dogs. Fortunately, it is pretty mild, so as long as it's just a couple of hours, I'm alright. I might have a bit of itchy eyes, but nothing serious. I do also know someone who is allergic enough that she can't even visit friends who have pets because she would get breathing issues already. So I responded that the responsibility of the dog was hers, and that there are people who are bothered by dogs, either because of allergies or fear, or whatever other reason they might have. Those people are expected at the office too, and that her desire to have a dog should not negatively impact people who are just going to work. Well, after that, she was cold all day, and several of my colleagues told me that I should just lighten up and that dogs can liven up the place in general. Now, considering dogs aren't allowed anyways, so it is kind of a moot point, I'm wondering, am I the jerk for telling her that it was justified that she was sent home after she took her dog with her to work? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk. Some people are just awful dog owners, and they definitely should not bring their dog to the office. Like seriously, some people just suck at training their dogs, and how are you supposed to know whether that dog's going to behave or not? Because there's a rule for a reason that you can't bring your pets to work. And if that wasn't the case, then people would bring their cats, birds, and pretty much anything they want. I'm not trying to say there's a slippery slope fallacy going on here, but for the sake of this office being a place of work and of business, this rule really does make sense. Because otherwise, people would absolutely take advantage of that and bring their animals with them all the time. So no, you're not the jerk for speaking the truth to your coworker. Because if she snuck her dog into the office and got sent home as a result, then that is truly her problem and not yours. My boyfriend does not want me to come to his jiu-jitsu competitions, as he says that he's too nervous when I'm there and that he feels like I'm a distraction anytime I show up. And now, at this point, I feel like I'm the bad guy because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 21-year-old female and my boyfriend is 24. We've been together for 7 months and we have had some issues. He trains in jiu-jitsu for the last 2 years and has competed a few times. I went to his last competition and he told me he didn't want me to come to his next few tournaments because he is nervous and he felt that I was a distraction last time I went. He said that it's fine if his friends come along, but if I come, it's different because I'm his girlfriend. Keep in mind, I'm a ballet dancer and I don't know anything about the sport that he does, and I am just there for support. I was pretty upset when he told me he didn't want me there because why would he not want his girlfriend to come support him? Everyone knows he has a girlfriend too, and when they ask, hey, why didn't your girlfriend come along? What is he gonna tell them? He told me I wasn't being understanding and that it has nothing to do with me, and if I had a competition where I didn't want him there, then he would understand. So now I feel like I'm the bad guy, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, I need to give some personal information about me because I also train jiu-jitsu. It's something I've done for about a year and it is a lot of fun, but also it is incredibly stressful and very hard. It's demoralizing, it's very humbling, and you literally get your butt kicked every single day. So when your boyfriend says he doesn't want you there and no, it's not personal, trust me when I say this, he really does mean that. Especially when it comes to competitions, these are incredibly stressful. It's scary because most times you don't know who you're going against, and there's always this lingering thought of, oh man, is this the day that I get injured and I can't do this sport for like 6 months? So truly, I don't blame your boyfriend in the slightest for him saying, look, just stay away from the tournaments, it's too stressful and I'm way too nervous. Because from my own experience, this sport can be very embarrassing, and to have someone that you care so much about watching that all all take place, it can really take a mental toll that is really hard to come back from. So no, you're not a bad person and you haven't done anything wrong, but I completely understand where your boyfriend's coming from, and I think that you absolutely should respect his wishes. Am I overreacting by refusing to travel with my dad's useless rich friend ever again? Because after the trip that we just had, I seriously hope I never have to deal with him ever again. Here's what happened. So my dad invited me to a trip to another state for a couple of days, and I was excited as I've been burned out for the past couple of weeks. For reference, I'm 23 years old and my dad is 55. He also said that his friend Kyle, who's 50 years old, would also be coming along. And I said no problem. I've known Kyle since I was a kid and we always got along. But I had no idea how useless this guy really is. For starters, Dad and Kyle almost lost their flight because Kyle woke up late. It's worth mentioning that Kyle is also very rich. He's always like, well, if I miss it, I'll just buy a new ticket. And he did that multiple times. When we got to the Airbnb, you know, the one that he chose, he proceeded to complain for what felt like an hour. He didn't realize that it was only 2 bedrooms, and he was outraged that they weren't suites. Like, dude, did you not read the description or check the pictures before booking? We were planning to leave by 9 o'clock the next day, but he didn't wake up until 10 o'clock in the morning. Dad said that it was our responsibility to tell him to wake up, when to get ready, what time we were leaving, and all of that. And yeah, that was weird, but okay, I guess. He then almost caused a fire because he went for a shower and forgot his bread on the toaster while me and Dad did a grocery run. He also couldn't make any decisions at all. He contributed nothing to the planning and would complain about some of our choices but never offer anything. He kept repeating over and over again that he is down for whatever we decide to do and would offer no help or opinions on where to go next or what to do. On the last dinner when we were seated on the table, he literally looked at my dad and said, "You guys just tell me where to sit." And it was a choice between the booth or a chair. And I was thinking to myself, what is going on? Another rant worth mentioning was his backpack. He bought a carry-on size backpack to use as a day pack and kept complaining that it was too big. Also, the weather was not what he expected. It was raining and he wanted to stay another day, but we refused. He's got legit insane dietary restrictions, but would not tell us what he could eat. He would only say, "Oh, just pick a place and I'll find something." But if we're going to a restaurant, I want him to be able to enjoy it as well. I could tell even my dad was getting angry at some points, and I actually snapped twice at Kyle for being unable to have any opinions or make any decisions. Dad eventually told me to drop it, but nothing further. And honestly, I could go on and on about this guy. After the trip, I told him that as much as I appreciated going out with them for a couple of days, I will not be traveling with Kyle anymore, even if it means me and my dad won't see each other as often. I mean, it is way too stressful. It feels like traveling with a kid that has money. It's okay that my dad likes this arrangement where Kyle pays and he plans it all, but I absolutely hate it. That being said, Kyle did pay for like 80% of the expenses. Dad says I'm overreacting, and this really was the price of a free trip. So am I in the wrong for the way I feel about Kyle? What should I do? Honestly, I think overall I kind of side with your dad on this one. Kyle quite literally paid for 80% of everything that happened during this trip. The guy is clearly loaded, and he wanted to treat you and your dad to something fun. So I think at the very least, you could at least pretend to be like grateful to have this opportunity or something like that, because seriously, this is a fun getup. Like if I went on a trip with my dad and he had a rich friend who was paying for almost everything, I would be willing to put up with a lot of awkwardness just to make sure that trip happens. Because sure, his behavior is a little weird, and it really does come off as someone with money who's like not really sure what he's doing, and he needed help figuring out like the smallest parts of whatever he was doing. But like that in and of itself is not really that serious, and I can personally put up with that if that means that we get to have a really cool trip of some kind. So yeah, I do think you might be overreacting to an extent, but I also do understand where you're coming from, because this guy did come off as really weird, and I can definitely see why this would rub you the wrong way. Am I the jerk for kicking the babysitter out of my house, as well as refusing to pay her after she brought her dog with her to babysit my newborn child? Here's what happened. So my wife and I planned a night out with friends. We have a 13-month-old, so we got our babysitter, who is a 20-year-old female, to come over for the night. We expected to be home around midnight, so we were paying for around 5 to 6 hours at $20 an hour. So she comes over, we thank her, and then we Uber over to meet up. Well, my idiot self forgot my wallet at home about 15 minutes away, so I ended up ordering an Uber to take me back home so I can run in and grab my wallet. As a side note, my wife stayed back and I planned to head back as soon as possible. Well, when I came back home, there was a black lab sitting in the the middle of my living room. Now here's the thing. I do not have pets, and my wife and I don't ever want pets. Plus, with the current age of my son, I don't want any pets around him. So I go up to the babysitter and I have to ask her. I say to her, "Where did this dog come from?" She then tells me that it's her dog, stating that her boyfriend dropped it off with dinner that he brought her. She then tried to assure me that the dog was kid-friendly, and she said that the dog was 11. It was just an old dog that would just be chill. Well, when she said that, I was honestly just not okay with it. And I told her this straight up and started to lecture her. Now, I could tell that she felt like she did nothing wrong and tried stating her case in some kind of way. But at that point, I had had enough. So I told her that she needed to leave and that I would not be paying her. And I just straight up kicked her out of the house. She then proceeded to argue, but I just wasn't having any of it. She then said that she wanted money, and I called my wife and I let her know what happened. Well, I ended up staying home for the night, and the babysitter texted us continuing to defend herself. And then she asked me to pay her the $120 that she was expecting. Needless to say, I don't plan on using her in the future, but seriously, am I the jerk in this scenario for kicking out the babysitter after she brought in a dog that I definitely did not agree to be in my house? What should I do? Oh man, this really upsets me because what this babysitter did is so inappropriate. First of all, you don't bring a pet into someone else's house without discussing this first. Like, you have no idea if they have an allergy to dogs or if the baby itself is allergic to dogs. Like, this babysitter is an absolute idiot for allowing that to happen or even assuming that this was acceptable behavior. Like, this really is so out of pocket, it's not even funny. And it's so awful that she really tried to defend her decision and be like, wait a second, he's an old dog. He's just gonna hang out and chill. Nothing's gonna happen. He's really kid-friendly, by the way. It's fine. And sure, maybe he is kid-friendly, but how on earth is the original poster supposed to know that? They don't know this dog at all, and they definitely did not agree to have it in their house. So the fact that she tried to argue against that when she was clearly in the wrong is just mind-blowing to me. But the icing on the cake here is the fact that she still demanded money for babysitting. And it's like, I'm sorry, that is not happening. You were not there for the full amount of time, so for you to be like, wait, you need to pay me the $120. I'm expecting that money. It's like, okay, but I was expecting you to babysit and not bring your dog over. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because this idiot absolutely deserved to be kicked out of your house. My toxic coworker is claiming that I didn't actually graduate from college and that I lied on my resume just to get the job that we all have. So I decided to get some petty revenge by showing up to the office with my diploma, proving that not only did I graduate college, but I also graduated first class with honors. And now, as a result, my coworker is claiming that I humiliated him in front of everybody. And now I'm left wondering if I'm the jerk in this situation or if this guy actually had it coming. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work in an office where everyone has at least a bachelor's degree. And trust me, this will be important later on. Most of my coworkers have their degree framed on the walls of their offices, and some also have pictures of them at their graduations. And as a fun fact, I think I'm the only one that doesn't. I would rather decorate my walls with pictures of my wife and me on trips that we've taken. I also didn't even attend my college graduation, as I'm not much for ceremonies in general. So I don't have any cap and gown pictures, which honestly has never bothered me. Recently, a coworker, who we will call John for the sake of the story, started actually suggesting that I didn't actually go to college and that I lied to get this job. Now, the accusation was so ridiculous that I basically just ignored it. But when I did this, that only seemed to convince him even more. He started saying dumb stuff like, oh, it must be nice to have gotten this job without doing any real work. Oh, I wish I could have gotten this job without student loans. If you'd have gone to college like the rest of us, you would understand. Now, I really tried ignoring him, thinking he probably just wanted to start drama of some kind. But eventually, I could sense our other coworkers beginning to think that John might be right, especially since I was choosing not to dispute it. So I decided to get petty, and I figured that I would just bring my stupid degree in and put an end to all of this. Now, here's the thing. I did really well in school, which was enough that I graduated with first class honors, which my diploma proudly says. And I've never mentioned this to anyone at work because it didn't feel that important. It's the degree itself that really matters. However, when I brought my diploma in, my coworkers really focused on the first class honors thing, and as a result, result, I became kind of a hotshot of the office that day, which was really weird. My boss insisted that I add it to my wall, saying that it looked good for the company. My coworkers then began teasing John about the whole thing, pointing out that his degree doesn't say anything about honors, and saying that it was a dumb accusation to make in the first place. Well, now John is pissed off and calling me a jerk, saying that I made him look bad with the whole honors thing, and saying that I could have found some other way to prove that I graduated without bringing in my degree. So seriously, am I the jerk for bringing my diploma into work just to prove that I graduated and shut John down? Because right now, I'm really not sure what to do. Okay, first of all, you are definitely not the jerk in this story. John is an absolute weirdo, and he ate his words almost immediately. And honestly, this is exactly what he deserves. He literally went out of his way to bully you at work and be like, oh, you don't actually have a college degree. It must be nice to get here without doing any real work. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, for starters, you have absolutely nothing to prove to this guy. You yourself know that you have a degree, so this guy tried to come at you and be like, wow, you don't have one. You lied on your resume. Like, that is so disgusting and unprofessional, it's not even funny. So the fact that you brought in your diploma and put it up and said, oh, look at this, I have it with first class honors. Like, even if you didn't mean to do that, that in my opinion is like the best revenge you could have possibly asked for. Because now John's trying to spit it and be like, wow, you made me look bad. You could have proved that you had a degree without embarrassing me. And that's basically all this comes down to. You not only prove that yes, you do have a diploma, but also you did better in school than he did. Because his diploma doesn't have first class honors. If anything, this just proves once and for all that John put his foot in his mouth, and that is absolutely not your problem. John absolutely deserves every ounce of backlash that he's getting from his coworkers, because his behavior towards you was just straight up workplace bullying. And the fact that you shut him down in the way that you did, even if you didn't mean to do that intentionally, in my opinion, is the best way this possibly could have gone down. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled jerk literally blocks me from leaving a parking lot by standing there on his phone with his car door open, preventing me from backing out. So I decided to be petty by honking my horn for as long as possible until this jerk finally got out of my way. Here's what happened. Okay, so recently I parked in an underground car park at a small shopping center. I parked nose in next to a large pole on my left, and there was an empty car space beside me when I went into the center. Now, when I returned to my car with a full shopping cart trolley, a man had parked next to me and reversed into the spot. And he was on his phone standing in between my car and his, with his driver's door open. And his door was almost touching my driver's door. So I gave him a nod to say hello, unloaded the groceries into the trunk, and returned to my trolley. When I came back to my car, I said to him, "Excuse me, please." And I said this so I could enter my car, thinking that he would realize that I wanted to leave. Well, this guy gave me the biggest sideways stink eye, still talking on his phone, but did move slightly and close his door so I could get in my car. But as soon as I'm in, he opens his door again. Now, if I had reversed, my wing mirror would have clipped his door, and I cannot swing my car the other way because of the pole. So I lower my window and I ask him nicely. I say to him, "Excuse me, can you close your door so I can leave?" This guy then glares at me, holds up his finger in a waiting motion, and then turns away. So I think to myself, okay. I close my window, I lock the doors, I look at him directly, and I lay my hand on the horn. He then spins around, and he looked like he was gonna lose his mind. Mind you, he is still on his phone, and my hand is on the horn. He then glares at me even harder, but my hand is still on the horn. I raise my eyebrows, and I just keep looking directly at him. Finally, he gets in his car and slams his door. I take my hand off the horn, I mouth the word thank you to him with a sweet smile, and then I reverse my car and get out of there. So was I petty in this situation? Yes. But also, did it feel good? Oh yes, that felt absolutely amazing. Oh man, I can't stand people who act like this, who are like, oh yeah, my phone call's way more important than you. Like, this guy can obviously see that you're trying to leave and go home, but he wants to act like some big hotshot and be like, no, you can wait, and just stands there and literally blocks you from leaving. So honestly, I think what you did was the only solution available. This guy was not listening and he was not letting you leave. And I just love the fact that you went ahead and blew the horn at this guy, because he absolutely deserved it. Am I the jerk for refusing to switch seats with my girlfriend on a plane? Because right now she is still upset with me, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So this past weekend, my girlfriend and I took a weekend trip. And for the sake of the story, we'll call my girlfriend Julie. That's not her real name. We're both students, so we had to budget where we could. So we bought basic economy tickets and just took whatever seats they assigned us. They were both middle seats, which was to be expected. But when we boarded the plane, it was pretty obvious that one seat was much better than the other one. Julie was assigned to a seat between a morbidly obese man who was spilling into her seat and a woman on her other side who wasn't as huge but was still quite big. But my seat was next to two normal-sized people. The thing is, I'm pretty big. I'm 6'5" and I weigh 220 pounds, and I have broad shoulders. Now, Julie isn't tiny herself. She's 5'10" and 165 pounds, but obviously she's much smaller than me. Julie immediately asked if we could switch seats, to which I said no. I knew Julie would be uncomfortable in the seats, but I don't even think I could fit between the passengers on either side of her. After some arguing back and forth, Julie sighed and just went back to her seat. Now, I thought it wasn't a big deal, but Julie was very cold to me when we landed. I offered to get us dinner on the way out, but she said her back hurt from the flight and she wanted to lay down. Well, I got the hint that she was upset about the seating arrangement, and I told her it wasn't a big deal in the grand scheme of things, and it was only a 2-hour flight, and that it's better her than me because she's smaller. Well, she told me to drop it and just drive her home. That night, I went to hang out with some of our mutual friends, and Julie had originally planned on coming too, but she ended up not going. Well, they asked where Julie was, and I told them that she was upset with me. When I told them why, the general consensus was that I should have switched seats with her because it was the chivalrous thing to do, though some people agreed that Julie was overreacting. They said it wasn't about who was bigger, it was about me protecting my girlfriend. And at this point, I kind of feel like a jerk and I feel like I should be apologizing. So was I in the wrong for not switching seats with Julie? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Okay, I don't think you're the jerk for keeping the assigned seat, but I think the way you went about doing this and the way you dismiss Julie's feelings entirely, in my opinion, is really not okay. That part definitely makes you the jerk. Instead of hearing her out and apologizing and being like, hey, I'm really sorry for taking that seat and I understand why you're upset, or at least hearing her out, you basically said, oh, it's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. Just calm down. It's only a 2-hour flight. It's dude, you're only adding gasoline to the fire. There was really no reason for that, and that honestly just kind of made things worse in my opinion. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for keeping the seats that you had, but I do think that you should have handled that situation way better. Am I the jerk for showing up to my cousin's wedding, only to then find out that I wasn't specifically invited to attend? Because right now the entire family is mad at me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm an 18-year-old female, and my cousin's wedding was this weekend. For the sake of the story, I'll call her Mary. Growing up, we were pretty close, as me and my siblings often went to Mary's house. But lately, we haven't really seen each other much, because all of them moved away for college, but it is still nice to see each other at family events. Well, a year and a half ago, she met her now husband, and he was invited to Christmas, Easter, and every family event since then. When he was there, I noticed that Mary was a lot more distant than usual, and barely talked to me, but talked with my siblings all night. And I just figured that it was maybe because of our age difference. For reference, I'm 18 years old and she is 22, and my siblings are 20 and 23. A few weeks and months go by, and we got an invitation to their wedding in the mail. Well, at least my parents did. My name wasn't mentioned on the invitation, which was addressed to my family's name, but since I live with my parents and my brother and sister both got one, I assumed that I was included, and so did my parents. But Mary's face dropped when she saw me. She pretended to smile, but I could see that something was bothering her. The wedding went on, but during the cocktail, Mary came to me and asked me why I came, since she didn't send me an invitation. And when she said this, I was taken back a bit, but we told her that we assumed that I was included and asked her why she didn't invite me. She avoided the question, but after insisting a bit, she told me that she wanted her husband's family to have a good impression of her family and didn't want them to know that her cousin was a lesbian because she wanted to have a normal family. For context, our family is pretty open-minded, and all of them accept me, but her husband and his family are a lot more traditional and conservative. What I don't understand is that I don't look gay, whatever that means, and they would have never known unless someone told them. When she said this, I was so shocked. I told her that she was sick for caring about impressing a bunch of jerks more than her own cousin. She then got mad and we both got a bit loud, which did attract some kind of attention. People came to find out what was happening, and when they found out, my parents said that she was being mean and shouldn't have made a big deal about this. But a bunch of other people said that it was wrong of me to come when I wasn't invited. Mary then started telling me to leave, so I just stormed off. Ever since then, I've been receiving text messages from her and her parents saying that I was a jerk for showing up, making a scene, and ruining her big day. I understand that it's her wedding and she can invite whoever she wants, but her words were so hurtful, and I genuinely thought that I was invited. But I know it's wrong that I caused such a scene on her wedding day, and maybe I should have just left and not said anything. So am I at fault in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're at fault at all, because this seems like an honest mistake. It's not like you knew you weren't invited. You showed up because you've considered Mary family. You obviously have some kind of deep history with her, so for her to suddenly be like, I want everybody here except for the lesbian, that is seriously insane. That is so uncalled for. But here's the other thing that I'm kind of thinking, and I don't have any evidence to substantiate this, but it really seems like Mary is not inviting you, not because her family doesn't like gay people, but because she doesn't like gay people. You said it yourself, there's no way they could ever know that you're a lesbian unless somebody told them in some kind of way. But the fact that she wouldn't stand up for you and at least be like, oh yeah, this is my cousin and there's not a problem here. Like, that is super toxic, and it leads me to believe that she's the one that has a problem with you being a lesbian, and she's using her extended family as a cop-out. And if that's the case, then my God, if I was in your shoes, I would run away and never look back. But you know what? In my opinion, you are not at fault here, because she's the one that came to you and made a big deal out of this. And she said that this is the reason specifically when you try to figure out, wait a second, why do you not want me here? So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think Mary is definitely the one with the problem. And if she didn't want to invite you, then she should have told you like an adult, instead of just assuming that you wouldn't be there, because that is incredibly immature and you do not deserve that in the slightest. My entitled roommate demands that I turn off the heat at any given moment, and despite the fact that it's been near freezing temperatures outside at night, this guy still demands that I keep it off also he can save a pretty penny. So I decided to maliciously comply, but instead I bought a heater that I keep on in my room literally 24 hours a day, costing this jerk hundreds of dollars on the electrical bill. And I've honestly never felt better about getting revenge on my roommate in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so my housemates are the most insufferable people on the planet. I could go on for hours about all the petty and downright aggressive stuff they've done, but for the sake of this post, I'll keep it very short. Both of them have these stupid things they get so anal over for no reason. For one of them, it's leaving drawers and cabinets open, even by like half an inch, and if she catches you, she will literally scream and threaten to hit you. The other one is the door, the leaky faucet he's convinced everyone is doing on purpose, and lights being turned on for like half a second. But one of the most recent things he's decided to be petty over is the heating being on at all. For context, it's a 2-story house. Roommate 1 sleeps downstairs, and me and roommate 2 sleep upstairs. I'm on the north side of the house, and I have very poor insulation, whereas he's on the south side and he has amazing insulation. Regardless, it doesn't justify his actions, because he's also a landlord for another property and knows that you need to keep heat on at least 60 to be legal and up to code. I stay upstairs 99% of the time because I hate interacting with them, and they're downstairs 90% of the time except for when they sleep. He goes upstairs every few hours during the day just to check the thermostat, and if it's anything above being turned off in the first place, he goes right over to me and demands that I stop playing with the heat. This month alone, the nighttime temperatures have been 40 degrees at most, and by the way, last night it was around 35. I had turned up the heat to a mere 60 degrees because I don't want the pipes in my room to freeze, and I own mice, and they will literally pass away if they're exposed to anything under 60-degree weather. As soon as he came upstairs, he turned it all the way off and came into my room to complain at me in my sleep. I eventually woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning to my room being 38 degrees and my dog whining. So after that, I went right out and I bought a 1500-watt convention heater and a heating pad for mice, which was about 20 watts. And I kept that thing on nearly 24 hours a day, every single day. By the way, he's also the one who pays the majority of the electrical bill, and if he wants to play Lord of the Thermostat to the point that it's literally criminal and it's going to destroy the house's pipes, then he should have no problem paying an extra $200 a month just to heat my room. Yeah, that roommate's a weirdo. Seriously, just let people have the heat on. It's cold outside, man. And you even have pets. Like, you have animals that need to have some kind of heat, otherwise they're gonna pass away. And this guy wants to sit there and be like, don't turn the heat on, what's wrong with you? It's like, oh, I don't know, buddy. Maybe it's freezing temperatures in my room, idiot. Like, the fact that this guy wants to complain and be like, don't use the heat, stop it, you better not. Like, that's crazy and just so weird. And he's only doing this for selfish reasons. He wants to keep the heat off so he doesn't have to pay for it. So that's so unacceptable, and maybe it's time to call the landlord and be like, hey, this is totally not fair, because what you're dealing with sounds so obnoxious and uncomfortable, and I really don't think that you should have to deal with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for being the reason that my grandparents refused to help out my dad anymore after he decided to steal and spend my inheritance money? Here's what happened. Okay, I'm a 16-year-old male, and my mom passed away when I was 7 years old. She left me an inheritance that my dad was put in charge of. The money was supposed to be used for my future, and nobody was supposed to touch it unless I really needed it, and it was pretty specific. I mean, I even read through it 5 months ago when things went down. My dad got married again when I was 10 years old, and he has an 8-year-old stepdaughter and now a 4-year-old daughter with his wife, who we will call Louise. My half-sister was diagnosed with a rare condition when she was 2 years old. It was always clear something was wrong, but they had a really hard time figuring out what it was. Now, the doctors would say that she would be fine when she was older. This condition isn't life-threatening, meaning that she probably won't pass away from it, but it potentially could leave her permanently disabled in a bad way. A few months ago, they found out about this hard-to-get-into treatment for it, but it was expensive. Now, there was and is ways to get help paying for it, but that takes a lot longer. So my dad decided that he would use the inheritance that mom left me to pay for it. He had tried asking me, but he was going to do it anyways. And when I said no, he told me as much. Then he shamed me for for saying no, for putting college before the health of my sister. Now, Louise was in the room with us, but she wasn't talking before I said no. She asked me how I could even look at my half-sister and the life that she will probably have, and made me feel bad because they needed to do something, but I'm over here saying no. I then told my dad that I would never forgive him if he took the money, and after I read my mother's will, which my grandparents thankfully had a copy of, I brought up the fact that the money can only be spent on my needs. He then said to me that mom was dead, and he would hope that she would understand, but I told him I never would. He then told me that I would understand when I'm older, but I told him that I hated him, and I told Louise that she better never speak to me again because I found it disgusting that she'd encourage stealing from me and taking my mom's money. I then told my grandparents what my dad did. They are my mom's parents, but had stayed friendly with dad, and there were times that they would help him out. They shared stuff with him all the time, and my grandpa would look at dad's car for free if anything was wrong with it. Well, all of that stopped when I told them, and dad couldn't figure out why until he confronted them about it last week. They told him he had some nerve stealing from me, taking their daughter's money and then spending it on his child. Well, my dad was mad they didn't understand and support his decision. He then confronted me about it and complained about what I did, but I just laughed and I told him I had warned him that I would never forgive him for it. He then asked me how I got to be so heartless and selfish, but I told him I would never forgive him for what he did. So truly, am I at fault in this situation? Because right now, I am still incredibly mad. No, I don't think you're at fault here at all. Like seriously, this guy took your money and gave it to somebody else. And yes, I understand that the situation is really dire and you're trying to figure things out, but that should not come out of your pocket. He has literally taken away your college career, all for a treatment that might not even work. And yes, I absolutely have sympathy for whatever this stepkid is going through. Like this is not fun and it's not fair for them. But it's the fact that he stole your money instead of using his own money that really just kind of sets my hair on fire. Like I don't care the circumstances. You don't dip into that money because seriously, it is not yours to take from. So truly, if your dad has a problem with your grandparents knowing about this, then he should not have been the one to do this in the first place. An entitled Karen loses her mind over the fact that I was using AirPods when she was trying to chase me down and ask me a question. And I'm honestly still so annoyed by this Karen, and I hope I don't have to deal with her ever again. Here's what happened. So I live in a condo complex that's notoriously difficult to navigate, and since I go outside hourly to smoke, I do occasionally encounter people asking for directions. Today, I have my AirPods in, minding my own business, walking 2 blocks over to my usual spot when I suddenly feel someone aggressively tapping me on the shoulder. I turn around and I find some older entitled Karen glaring at me. I then take out one of my AirPods, waiting for her to say something, but instead she gives me this over-the-top shrug as if I'm supposed to magically know what she wants. Now, I do struggle a bit with being approachable at times, but I do like to give people the benefit of the doubt. So I ask her if I can help her out with anything. She then informs me in a very annoyed voice that she's been calling after me the entire time that I was walking. Now, I was already slightly irritated, but I pull out the other AirPod and I show it to her, explaining that I had these in my ears so I couldn't hear her. Now, rather than addressing whatever she needed, she stammers a bit and tells me that I was being discourteous. Now, at this point, rather than asking her if she even knows what that word means, I calmly put my headphones back in, I pull out my phone, and I stand there smoking like she doesn't exist. She then finally asks me where some building is, but you know what? I just ignore her. She then repeatedly starts saying, "Excuse me," and she's saying this louder and louder. So I look up at her with a blank expression, as if I'm seeing her for the first time, and then she screams as loud as she can, "Excuse me," but this time she has actual anger in her face. And I just point at my headphones and give a casual shrug that says, "Sorry, I can't hear you, and there's nothing you can do about it." And then I just go straight back to my phone. Now, there's no music playing, so I can hear every single word this Karen is saying, and she says to me, "You're absolutely unbelievably disrespectful." She then swore at me and walks away, and she does so while still talking to herself, while I smugly enjoy winning this passive-aggressive battle. Wow, some people are just so entitled. Wearing AirPods and walking down the street is not discourteous. That is you just being a normal human being and like going about your life. The fact that she wants to blame you on her being lost is just so weird in my opinion. So personally, I love the way you handled this because people who act like this really just need to be shut out. And the fact that you gave her the silent treatment and that's what made her so angry, in my opinion, is super hilarious. An entitled jerk rams into my car 4 times at a stoplight, complaining that I should have gone right as the light turned green. He even went as far as laughing in my face when I asked for an ambulance after I got whiplash from his negligence. And now I'm highly considering suing this guy because I am so angry about what he did to me. Here's what happened. So today I was driving to work and I'm stopped at a red light, and it's right then that an old jerk in a big rig pulls up right behind me. The light turns green, and before I even have a chance to react, this guy rams his truck truck into my car. And he doesn't do this once or twice, but he does this 4 times in total. Now, of course, I'm in a shock for a split second before I accelerate up the road and I pull over. So I get out and I signal for this old jerk to pull over. He pulls over, but when I go back in my car to retrieve my phone and wallet, he tries to pull away. And at this point, I am pissed off. So I pull ahead of him again and I signal once more. And I'm sure he knew at this point that there was no way his truck was going to outrun my car. Now, as soon as he gets out, what do you think he does? For starters, he doesn't ask if I'm okay and he doesn't apologize. Instead, he goes straight to blaming me, acting like a light turning green is an excuse to ram into someone. He literally didn't give me more than a second to move. He was very close to my rear end when it happened, so most likely this old idiot forgot I was even there. Now, I'm not proud of it, but when he blamed me for the accident, I lost my cool and I cussed him out. I mean, why are these people such jerks and they never accept responsibility? I called the police to let them know what happened and requested an ambulance because I got whiplash on my neck. And when I did that, this old jerk thinks that this is hilarious and starts laughing in my face. So yeah, this guy's a complete jerk. But you know what? He is not going to be laughing so much when he learns the value of my car, the medical bills, and all the other bills. And I'm pretty sure this guy's employer is absolutely gonna love him. Wow, that is unbelievable that someone would seriously act that way. For starters, you have to be a special kind of stupid to literally ram into someone 4 times. Like, how on earth at a stoplight do you ram into someone 4 times and then act as if this is the original poster's fault? Like, that is some crazy talk. There is no good excuse. And I think the part that would have made me the most angry is this guy laughing in my face if I was the one calling the ambulance for whiplash. Like, whiplash is no joke. That is serious and it's not something you want to take lightly. So the fact that this old jerk thought it was hilarious and was laughing in your face, like at that point, the gloves are off. Because if I was in your shoes, I would stop at nothing to make sure that this guy never treats anyone like this ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My mom claims that me choosing to stay with my boyfriend is a huge slap in the face to the entire family. And after she said this, among other awful things, I'm now left wondering how I'm supposed to cope with all of this. Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I'm a 24-year-old female, and I've been with my boyfriend for a little over 7 months. And it's been a huge problem with my family since the beginning. The second my mom saw a photo of him, she outright said that he's not a person I should be with, and that she did not support us. He has a couple of tattoos and a couple of facial piercings, but it's honestly nothing too crazy. And this is where it all started. My boyfriend is the kindest and most loving man I've ever met, and we are best friends. I have never once doubted that this is the man that I want to spend forever with. He is kind, gentle, and understanding, literally everything I've ever wanted. But my mom just doesn't care to hear any of that. My boyfriend has his own house, his own car, and a job, and has never once so much as raised his voice to me, so none of those are issues. The main issue for my mom and grandparents, as my dad is not in the picture, is the way that he looks. The fact that he did not go to college, comes from a poorer family, and was not taught proper manners growing up. And his family has a history of substance problems, which, by the way, none of this has ever had anything to do with him. A few days ago, I told my mom that when I graduate and move away for my big girl job next year, I want him to come with me. Well, this caused a huge argument, where she told me that she and my grandparents have been financing my entire life, and they're giving everything they have to make sure that I have a good life, stating that I've been taking advantage of them and that I am ruining it all by doing this. She said that my life will be doomed to fail, and she can't believe I would be stressing my grandparents out so much at the end of their life. She then said that this is a big slap in the face to them, that I replaced her with him. Well, at this point, I don't know how to cope with all of this. I love my family, and we've always been close. We have never fought like this before, so I'm not good at standing up for what I want. I feel like I owe it to them to be a good daughter and granddaughter, but I don't want to leave him. I'm devastated to even think about it. What should I do? Okay, your mom and your grandparents are being absolutely out of line. Like, seriously, the way they're acting is so weird. Just because you're dating someone that doesn't fit the stereotypical, like, good boyfriend vibe, doesn't mean that he's not a good person. He is not his family's troubles, and his past and lack of education doesn't mean that he's not a good person, and that he wouldn't be a good future husband. Like, this guy is 23 years old, and he already has his own house, car, and a good job. He treats you nicely, and he loves you. So it's like, okay, what's the problem here? It doesn't make sense for your mom to be acting this way. Also, she is straight up using your grandparents' age as some kind of like guilt-tripping factor, where she's like, oh my god, you're stressing them out. How could you do this to them? But in reality, you're not doing anything to to them. You haven't harmed them, and you haven't even insulted them in any kind of way. You've just said that you want your boyfriend to come with you for your new job. So honestly, I think this entire thing is so overblown by your mother, it's not even funny. Because at the end of the day, she does not have a claim over your life and what you choose to do. And if she seriously has a problem with the way you're living your life, then that is something that she is gonna have to work out. Am I the jerk for picking a restaurant that my siblings couldn't eat at simply because my needs have never been met since the day my dad remarried? Here's what happened. So my uncle brought me out to eat on Saturday because he wasn't here for my 16th birthday 3 weeks ago, and he had to take my 2 step-siblings with us, my 13-year-old stepsister and my 11-year-old stepbrother. And by the way, he is not their step-uncle. He's my mother's brother, and my step-siblings are my dad's stepkids. But my uncle and dad used to be best friends, but their friendship ended when my mom passed away 7 years ago. Things are messy because my uncle still wants to see me, and I want to see him, but my dad doesn't want my step-siblings left out, so they get dragged around sometimes. Now, something kind of relevant is that my step-siblings have non-anaphylactic food allergies. Their allergies are different from each other, and they get rashes and start throwing up and stuff like that from eating foods that they're allergic to. This has become such a focus for my dad and their mom that I don't get to eat places that I like, even when my step-siblings aren't there, because apparently it's not fair. I'm also the only person in the family who never gets to have my favorite restaurant on rotation for eating out. My dad, his wife, and both of my step-siblings get their #1 choice, but because mine doesn't easily accommodate my step-siblings, I simply can't have it, meaning that all of my top 5 places are out. Even for stuff like my birthday, I hate it and I resent it. I don't have the family affection or mushiness for them to make it easier, so I just basically suck it up. But you know what? When my uncle was taking me, I chose my top choice and he took us. My step-siblings didn't eat, and I didn't even feel bad because their needs are always put first, and they shouldn't have been tagging along anyways. Well, fast forward, and their mom was so mad when my uncle dropped me off, and my dad was so disappointed in me. He asked me why I chose it, and I told him it's my favorite restaurant, and it's been almost 6 years since I got to eat there because they decided I can never have it while I live with them. I told him it was meant to be celebrating my birthday, and since I get messed over when they celebrate me because of my step-siblings, I didn't see why I had to do it when my uncle was taking me. I told him that they shouldn't have been there in the first place, and I didn't want them there. He was just messing with my uncle. Well, his wife overheard me saying that her kids shouldn't have been there, and she asked me where my compassion is and where my sibling bond went. And you know what? I just told her that I never had one. My step-siblings were really upset that they'd been forced to watch the 2 of us eat, and that made their mom more angry at me, and my dad more upset with me, especially because I didn't feel bad about it. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk in the slightest, because the way your stepmother and dad have been treating you is just so unfair. So you mean to tell me that everybody else's needs and wants get put above yours, all because they have non-anaphylactic food allergies, which by the way is pretty easy to avoid if you're careful enough, especially when you're eating out at a restaurant. Like, there's no reason the original poster can't have something ordered at a restaurant of their choice and then pick it up and eat it in their room or by themselves. That way it's away from the step-siblings who would have some kind of reaction to it, and they still get to have something that they enjoy. Also, this forced participation in your activities, in my opinion, is super annoying, and I find that to be unbelievably stupid. Like, if I was in your shoes, I would be just as pissed off. Because this is your birthday celebration with your uncle. These 2 are not even related to him, so it really doesn't make sense that they would even come along in the first place. So hopefully, your dad and his wife in the future realize full and well that their behavior is definitely the problem here. Because in the grand scheme of things, what you did, in my opinion, was not bad in the slightest. My former job was an absolute nightmare to work for, as this restaurant violated so many health code violations that I'm now considering reporting them for all the things that they're doing wrong. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've worked in the restaurant industry for over 7 years, and I've never seen so many violations and absolute disregard for public safety. All the sauces or anything on a guest's already eaten plate or the sauce dish is not allowed to go in the dish pit or in the garbage. Instead, it is to go back to the expo line for the owner Barb to recover it and put it back in the supply containers, and then they serve it up to the next guest. Now, this doesn't only stop with the sauces. This also is the same process for any garnishes, any butter that was used or not, any bread, open containers of creamers, waters, sparkling waters, etc. All things that have been on the guest table and touched by all guests throughout their 2-hour dining experience. When I attempted to discard the used sauces and butters and food, I was redirected to take them to the expo line for Barb to recover and reuse the contaminated food. And this is for every table in the restaurant. restaurant, there is no exceptions. I personally witnessed the owner take a used butter dish with a guest's blood on it and say out loud, "Whose blood is this?" and then proceed to wipe the blood off the dish and place it back outside the kitchen with all the other new butters for the guest to use. I also witnessed the reuse of unwashed guest napkins. Barb stated that it costs way too much money to wash them, so if they are not stained, they must be reused and rolled with silverware. Now, I've worked for chain restaurants like Chili's and Red Robin, as well as many privately owned small restaurants, and in my nearly 10 years in this business and other hospitality combined, I have never seen so many violations committed in a single shift. I am appalled by the complete disregard for public safety and will not be complacent by endangering guests with other diseases. And at this point, I strongly encourage a surprise inspection during service. If inspection were to go at 7:00 p.m. on a Friday or Saturday, they will literally witness for themselves all of the used guest dishes that are covering the expo line that are being picked off by the owner for reuse prior to anything being discarded and taken to the dish pit. Meaning, an inspection outside of service hours is not going to show the true extent of the disregard for health and safety standards and for the safety of their patrons. Now, at this point, I have left employment with the restaurant by my choice, and I left on good terms, but I can't just stand by and say nothing. So would I be the jerk if I reported them to the state? What should I do? No, you would not be the jerk, and seriously, this is something that needs to be reported like right away. If I was a customer and I was looking for somewhere to eat, I would not want to go somewhere where they are literally so disgusting and unclean. Like, the owner of this restaurant should be ashamed of herself because she quite literally could injure someone so badly. So in my opinion, this absolutely needs to be forwarded to the health department because what this owner is doing, in my opinion, is an absolute nightmare. An entitled Karen freaks out on me over the phone after I don't give her exactly what she wants. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened earlier today and I just need to get this off my chest. I work in a call center supporting a large national dog charity. People can sponsor dogs and they get updates regularly. Today, a woman called wanting to discuss one of our sponsored dogs who sadly passed away recently. Now, we have a dedicated team for this, so I called through to see if they were available, but it all went straight to voicemail. So I went back and I told her as such, and I asked if she wanted me to request a callback. Well, when I said that, she lost her mind. Basically, she didn't understand that there was no one available to speak to her at that moment and demanding to be put through to somebody else. Now, I tried explaining that maybe they were dealing with another customer or they were on the phone, but she just wasn't having it. She wanted to speak to someone right now, and she was behaving as though she had been in our call queue for hours, but in reality, she had been waiting for a whopping 1 minute before being put through so that I could have to deal with her. I managed to find another poor person for her to speak to and transferred her, but I was physically shaking after being yelled at out of nowhere. Thankfully, I don't get this very often, and the rest of my calls were completely fine, but I just can't imagine having the mindset that you are the only person in the world and everyone who has a phone is just waiting for a call from you. Yeah, I will never understand why people are so angry over the phone, especially when it's for something as good as this. Like, literally, she's calling in for a national dog charity, and this lady's like, "This is ridiculous," and just starts freaking out all because she's not getting what she wants. So truly, I'm so sorry that they yelled at you, because you did not deserve that, since you were quite literally just doing your job. Am I the jerk for telling my neighbor that they need to get their boat out of our yard, or else it is going to be set out by the road for someone else to come and pick up? Because right now, this boat's been sitting in our yard for over 2 months, and at this point, we seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I have lived next door to a family since 2016. I had babysit their son since he was 5 months old, and he is now 3. And we did this whenever they needed a date night or had something going on, which was about every other weekend. They also had another baby a year ago, so I also watched him. They would invite us over a lot and have dinner and share some of their herbs, their drinks, and just hang out and talk. We became pretty close after living next to each other for years. We would have each other's backs and look out for one another if anything sketchy took place in the neighborhood. Well, about 4 months ago, they moved 5 minutes down the road. While they were in the moving process, I offered to help them out by asking if they would want me to watch their boys so they can move things. But they asked if they could leave their boat in our yard for just a few days until they get settled in their new house, and then they would come and pick it up. Now, we were like, yeah, of course, that's totally fine. But eventually a week went by, and then a month, and then 2 months went by, and we didn't say anything at all about the boat still being there, and also hadn't heard anything about the plan for them to pick it up. So we messaged them. We said to him, "Hey, are you planning on getting the boat?" He replies by saying, "Oh yeah, we'll get it this weekend." But even still, there was no message saying that he will come and get it, and we still didn't hear anything for another week. Now, I asked again, and at this point, I was pretty irritated, and eventually he comes to pick it up. Well, the boat needs a new tire, so now he's got to leave and buy a new tire to haul it home. But now it's been almost 2 weeks, and he still has not even communicated about coming to get the boat. We are not only so over having this boat here in our yard, but also feel disrespected as we let them borrow our space and our property for a while now. So my husband told them if they aren't coming to pick it up, he was going to set it out by the road for someone else to pick it up. So I really need to know, are we the jerks for saying this? Because right now we're very frustrated and we really don't know what to do. No, this is really ridiculous. These people have waited for 2 months to do anything with this boat. And even when they finally get back to you after, I don't know, ghosting you for several weeks, they then walk away for what, 2 more weeks and say nothing to you? Like if I was in your shoes, I would be livid. I would be so annoyed that they haven't communicated anything in the slightest. Like, does it really take that much to send a text message and be like, oh, okay, we'll pick it up? Or even to say, yeah, we've got a new part ordered and we're gonna get a new tire and all this other stuff? Like, it really would not be that hard to communicate this and get your boat off of their property. But it's pretty obvious to me that they just wanted to take advantage of your kindness and your willingness to help out. And that is seriously not fair. It also makes me question any time you've helped them out in the past. Like, you've clearly helped them raise their kid, like you help them all the time, which apparently was like every other weekend or something like that. So they're having a date night and doing something else and forcing you to watch their kid. Like, I don't know. Especially when you're comparing how they're acting right now, it seems like this kind of behavior has been going on for a while. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all for being like, hey, you've got to get rid of your boat, because any kind of grace period that might have been there from the beginning has definitely expired like literally a month ago. And at this point, I think it's pretty obvious that they are definitely just taking advantage of you. Am I the jerk for calling out my coworker and leading them to tears after I found out that they had a problem with my work schedule? Here's what happened. Okay, so I work what some people in the medical field would consider a unicorn job. No weekends or holidays, no on-call, and for me, a set schedule. I've been working this set schedule for more than a year without any issue, and this was decided with my manager upon hire, even though it wasn't in writing. At the time, I was the first and only full-time employee, so I was offered my choice of scheduling. My tenure to the new employees has held up, and in my opinion, rightfully so. My experience in the medical field has always been that if you're tenured, you're going to get the best schedule. Well, recently, my manager has informed me that there are complaints from the other 4 employees that it is unfair that I don't work on Fridays, and that he would like for me to work a few Fridays. Now, I'm a single mom with young kids. My kids are in multiple therapies and sports classes, and all appointments for routine things are scheduled out for Fridays. And at this point in the year, it is scheduled out basically through December, because my set schedule has been the norm for over a year. Now, in talking with a few of my coworkers, 3 of them don't really mind that my schedule is what it is, and understand where I'm coming from. I'm the only one with small kids to have to work around. However, today when my manager approached me again about these complaints, I essentially knew who it was coming from because I've already confronted everybody else. So I confronted coworker number 4 in front of all of the others, asking why there's such an issue with my schedule, which is truly none of their business, as to why I am available or not available on certain days. This coworker then stated things like, oh, it's just not fair. Fridays are a hard day. If I want a Friday off, I have to request it. I only get it off if I go out of town. And it's like, okay, and that is not my issue. Why does it need to be fair? This is the real world, not kindergarten. I have never worked a job where an equal level coworker's opinion dictated someone else's schedule. Why do I have to pull my children from sports and classes and rearrange our life all because one person cried about fairness? During this confrontation, this coworker told me that this is between you and the manager. And I said, yeah, it was until you decided to complain about it, and now it involves you. Well, when I said that, coworker number 4 got teary-eyed and left crying after the relatively civil confrontation, meaning that there was no yelling or name-calling, but in the end, they still cried. So am I the jerk for calling my coworker out and making them cry? Because right now, I'm really not sure what to do. Okay, you are absolutely the jerk here. You're not some tenured employee. You have only worked there for a year. Like, what are you talking about? When I first read through this story, I thought I was dealing with someone who had worked in the medical field for like 20 years or something. But this is someone who's so fresh it's not even funny. So any idea of seniority or tenure that they're trying to describe, in my opinion, is completely insane. Like, this is just completely out of left field. But also, seriously, like, what is your problem? You went to each one of your coworkers and basically did a shakedown. You went up to every single one of them and basically said, okay, what's your problem with me? And it's like, holy crap, what is happening right now? Instead of going to your manager and figuring that had out, you decided to go to every single employee that worked there and shake them down for information and be like, okay, let's talk about it. What's your problem with me? Like, this story comes off as super entitled, and you really should not have done that. Like, that's a really fast way to get fired, in my opinion, and based on your attitude, it might be deserved. And also, you didn't have a civil conversation with this fourth coworker. You literally called them out in front of everybody because you wanted to embarrass them. You wanted to put them on the spot so they had nowhere to run. And that, in my opinion, is so unprofessional and so entitled. So yes, you are definitely the jerk here. You're not some seasoned, tenured employee, and you definitely do not have any seniority because the way you acted was completely inappropriate. My friend is trying to sabotage my relationship all because she got cheated on and is now trying to ruin everything in my life in some kind of jealous rage. And right now I feel so confused and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I feel really sick to my stomach right now, especially after the last few hours and days that I have experienced. I am emotionally drained. I'm confused, I'm lost, and I'm hurt. It's 4:30 in the morning and my brain won't shut off. So I'm coming to the internet to let it all out. So for a bit of context, I'm a 22-year-old female and I have a new boyfriend who's also 22. We've only known each other for about 3 months and recently we made it official and we were introduced by my friend who I will call Laura. Now, Laura and I were never really close. I was close with her friend who invited me out to the club a few months ago, and that night, Lauren and me bonded, and she ended up introducing me to my now boyfriend the very next day. She hyped my boyfriend up before we met and encouraged me to go out with him, because apparently she has known him since she was little and expressed how good of a guy that he really was, even though I was in no place to be dating, and also haven't had much luck with relationships, as I struggle with anxious attachment and trust issues. But still, she insisted that he is actually really a sweet guy, and we might just hit it off, and we did. Well, the whole issue from the beginning, though, was that Lauren was hooking up with my boyfriend's very close friend, who we will call Joe, and this friend in particular wasn't the relationship kind of guy, and made it clear to Lauren from the start that he is someone who's just gonna mess around, if you know what I mean. He didn't seem like a bad guy, but he definitely was the friend in the group that just wasn't mature enough for a relationship, and definitely is not to be trusted in the relationships. Well, Lauren and him started dating anyways though, and it seemed like they began dating the moment they saw my boyfriend, and they actually really did hit it off and click really well. Joe started acting all romantic with Lauren, and she fell right into it, even after he had shown her that he didn't respect her and couldn't commit. Now, my boyfriend had defended Lauren multiple times to Joe and expressed that he can't treat girls the way Joe does in relationships, but we also wanted Lauren, and she chose to get into a relationship with Joe. So basically, when Lauren and Joe started officially dating, my boyfriend took a backseat. He basically said, if they break up, don't say I didn't warn them, and I don't want to hear about the drama of their relationship anymore because it's way too much drama, which is completely valid. Now, Joe and Lauren dated for a good month until he cheated on her. My boyfriend and I found out through Joe because he called and told us that Lauren found stuff in his phone, and they ended up breaking up, and it was a massive mess. About a week after Lauren and Joe broke up, she began acting weird towards me and my relationship. She was now in this mindset where she hates all men, and she even was now acting different towards my boyfriend. She started asking me questions like, so like, are you happy with your boyfriend? Is he really making you happy? And truly, I found it weird, but I just kind of let it slide. She started then expressing how angry she is that my boyfriend is no longer defending her or doing anything about Joe cheating on her, and how she thinks he's fake and so are all of his other friends. She then started saying that she hates all men and all this other horrible talk about relationships. But yesterday is definitely when it all got really bad. I hung out with Lauren again, but I ended up grabbing an Uber to my boyfriend's house after his friends left as it was late, and she was also going to bed at the time. It all was perfectly fine until I got to my boyfriend's house and I told her one of his friends was there too, and he was about to head out. And it was then that she was not okay with not being invited. She then began spam calling me, and when I answered, she began yelling at me and my boyfriend for not including her, all because his other friend is there, and that my boyfriend is fake and a traitor, and all this other stuff. We explained that it wasn't like that, and that the friend is literally leaving. I had to explain to her that I'm allowed to hang out with my boyfriend and his friends too. Just because she introduced me to my boyfriend doesn't mean that she has to always be there. This really upset my boyfriend and I until today, and it really upset me because she called me again and started talking crap about my boyfriend, telling me every bad thing about him, including everything Joe told her about my boyfriend, and she said she thinks my boyfriend is using me, and that if he is so fake towards her, he will absolutely do it to me. She then said that me and him should break up, and this was after months of her only saying the best things about him. She also admitted that she overhyped him and made it seem like he was a lot better of a guy than he actually was because she wanted to set us up and be a good wingman. She also wouldn't let me hang out on the phone either and would guilt trip me for hours on going back and forth and would say that my boyfriend is actually a good guy, but she just thought I should know all these things about him. She tried to ruin my relationship tonight, and after talking to him, I do feel better, but I can't help but feel disgusted. And I truly feel disgusted by her and not him. She violated my boundaries to the core, and if my boyfriend was a bad guy, then she is a bad person for setting me up with a bad guy and pretending he wasn't. Now, apparently she was having a bipolar disorder episode during this, and I'm not sure if that is relevant, but the way she was acting was very similar to things I've experienced, especially with other friends who deal with the same thing. I feel extremely sick and upset. I feel as though I can't cut her off because this girl is going to try and ruin my relationship. The first relationship I truly gave a chance and have fallen in love. At the back of my head, the side that overthinks and is anxious, that side is thinking, wow, maybe me and my boyfriend should break up. She thinks so horribly of him, and what if she really did lie about him the whole time, just so she could set us up and get close to Joe and have it all be a group? What if her opinion now really is the full truth, and my boyfriend is everything she is claiming now that the truth is out? So right now, I don't know who to trust, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Okay, first of all, your friend is crazy. Like, she literally is trying to ruin your relationship, and it all stems from the fact that you have a boyfriend and she doesn't. Like, for some twisted, weird reason, she's jealous of you, and it just doesn't make any sense. So in my opinion, I would take everything she's saying with like a grain of salt and basically throw it right out the window. She is not actually telling you the truth either, by the way. She's only saying these things to try and get you to break up with your boyfriend. Like, that really is all that's going on here, and if I was in your shoes, I would not be taking this lady seriously in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for telling my wife about an incident at dinner with my sister-in-law and her friend, as they were both collectively talking garbage about my wife, saying that I could do a lot better than the person I was planning to get married to? Here's what happened. Okay, so my sister-in-law has this obnoxious friend who she met in college. This woman is one of those people with an undeserved sense of self-importance. She is not particularly attractive, overweight, and has a know-it-all abrasive attitude. Also, she is one of those big is beautiful type of women. And yes, while she does have her bachelor's degree, she thinks that this makes her better than anyone without a bachelor's degree. So my sister-in-law asked my wife and I to join her and this friend to come to dinner at a Chinese buffet. Now, dinner went okay until my wife got up to use the bathroom. At this point, this friend decides to bluntly tell me that she doesn't understand why I am in a relationship with my fiance since I am so much better educated than her. For reference, I'm an attorney and my wife is a nurse's aide. She then goes on to say that I am out of my wife's league, heavily implying that I should be dating her instead. She makes these comments in full earshot of my sister-in-law, who just sits there and says absolutely nothing. Now, I was highly offended on behalf of my wife and myself, and I replied with something like, well, she has other things going for her, and then I thought to myself, for one, she's much sweeter and more fun to be around, and way better looking than my sister-in-law's friend. I also pointed out that my wife, who was my fiance at the time, is not finished with her education yet, and she is certainly on my level as far as intelligence goes. So my wife returns and dinner goes on, and during this time, this woman is acting all buddy-buddy with the both of us. After we leave the restaurant, I told my wife about what this woman had said, and she is also offended, although we both had a good laugh at this woman's expense, given her lack of assets. So after this incident, my sister-in-law decides to move, and my wife and I agree to help out. And of course, my sister-in-law invites this same friend and the friend's significant other. Well, as it turns out, this friend decides that it's hot outside and keeps shutting and locking the door while I do all the moving work, along with the man my sister-in-law hired to drive the U-Haul. And I have to work twice as hard while this fat, lazy lump sits on her butt and keeps locking the stupid door. So after these incidents, my wife and I both decided that we both emphatically do not like this woman, and my wife tells my sister-in-law all of this. Fast forward a couple of weeks ago, and my wife is talking to my sister-in-law on the phone, and my sister-in-law brings up this friend and starts going on about how this woman has cancer and won't stop smoking. Well, after several minutes of this, my wife reminds my sister-in-law that she doesn't like this woman and reminds my sister-in-law exactly why. My sister-in-law then replies that my wife should stop talking to me, clearly implying implying that I should have not told my wife about this woman's crap talk about my wife, as well as her ham-fisted attempt at flirting. Now, incidentally, my sister-in-law never told my wife about the incident at the Chinese buffet and would have presumably let this incident be unknown to my wife had I not spoken up. Apparently, she thought my wife had no right to know. So am I the jerk for telling my wife about this incident and deciding that I don't like this woman? Is my wife the jerk for not liking this woman and not wanting to hear about this woman's bad luck in getting cancer? I honestly don't think I am, but at this point, I seriously need to know what to do. No, you're definitely not the jerk. Your sister-in-law's friend is a complete moron. Like, why on earth would she be like, wow, you deserve better than her, and then try to insert herself in there as if that's gonna be like, oh wow, you're right, you've won me over, I'm gonna marry you instead. Like, seriously, what was she thinking? That is so inappropriate and so disgusting. Just because someone doesn't have a college education or hasn't finished their education doesn't mean that they're not intelligent and not worth loving. And by the way, I know people with bachelor's degrees who are dumb as bricks, so for this lady to act like she's all high and mighty for getting a 4-year degree, like seriously, that is not that impressive. And don't get me wrong, it's a great accomplishment, but for someone to try and put themselves above other people intellectually just because you have one, in my opinion, is ignorant and just so stupid. So no, of course you're not the jerk. You absolutely had an obligation to tell your wife exactly what happened, especially since your sister-in-law was planning to keep this in the dark. My vacation time with my mom is finally coming to a close, and I feel both happy to be away from her mental space, but also very guilty considering all that we've been through. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I'm both happy and guilty. Happy because I'm leaving my mom's mental space where I am not who I am. I can't be seen or heard, as my mom never figured out that the world around her is not what she decided it is. So when something doesn't go as she would plan it, like me for example, or some rule of hers, she then just dismisses it as crazy or calls it rubbish. Now, my mom is not a bad person. She would not steal or hurt anybody, and she also has certain internal rules that she just doesn't betray. She is a tough woman, but being around her is like giving up on life. Now, for reference, I am 55 years old, by the way. I'm not a spring chicken, and I testify that this problem has lasted a lifetime, especially if you're like me and you're lucky to build your successful life. My mom needs me as an audience, so she really cares not to lose me, and her ways of communication did not work for anyone else. She has no friends and no people who would check in on her. She did not do anything bad towards others, but she is not enjoyable, as she wants to prove only her points and destroy other people's views and arguments. This literally is her idea of a stimulating conversation, and naturally nobody likes it. So there's only me, the special one who will take care of her. Now, on the other hand, I do feel guilty. I feel I am failing to appreciate my mom in all her fullness, to feel her entitlement as a small, not essential thing in a grand view of her motherhood. But I simply can't. I know what she needs. I know I can make an effort and deliver it to her in small doses. I do make an effort once a day, even though I live in a different country from her, and I call to provide the audience and just listen to her every single day. Now, I have no problem with this part of conversation, but then she asks me how my day goes, and this is when it all gets harder. I just need to accept every time that she is not interested in my day, and instead she's looking at it in order to find places in my day's story where she can find some kind of disagreement, and these disagreements are also stimulating to her. I am basically giving her my life to play with, to amuse her. My life is like a toy in her hands. It took me a lifetime to understand it, and I still do provide her with my life as a toy, so she can feel important in some kind of way, but in return, she agreed to some boundaries that I placed. For example, she can't call me and only I call her, but I've also trained her that I never fail to call. In 25 years, I've never missed. Whether I've been sick or busy, I always provide her my call, and it works really well. My vacation time is also spent visiting her overseas, and it is the most difficult time for me as I'm deprived of my world, my life, my infrastructure, my function, as well as the mentality of my world. Everything shrinks down to the childhood apartment with its rules, issues, routines, and demands. I'm stuck with short blankets that never fully cover me, and I still don't understand what's up with these blankets. I am 5'6" and my mom is 5'2", so I guess the blankets are for her height, or maybe they're from times when people were just smaller. I don't really know. Communication is also very difficult. My mom would prefer to operate with me through signals. I can see how hard it is for her to consider me, but as a full adult who delivers a daily call, I am valued. Only with age have I started to see things more clearly. The broken mechanism of all this entitlement. I do feel compassion to it, but I know it's all in vain. My mom is not missing what she doesn't have. So it's my job to make an effort to provide her with an audience, because she herself cannot acquire or maintain the audience. It would require effort and a certain labor, and my mom just simply wouldn't invest into it. Maybe if she didn't have me, she would have found something else. But I am here and I do love her. But even then, I know that I can't make her happy. The only way to make her happy is to sit next to her in case she needs me. I ask for nothing and I do nothing. And I just provide her the audience when she wants to have it. And I just agree with her all the time after letting her take you apart and break you down. I honestly have no mind of my own. And even this will not make her happy, as then she just can't be proud of me. She literally needs that as well, as it proves her value in some kind of way. But being a successful person professionally and personally is incompatible with the mentality that she lives in. Now, I think she understands this on some levels, and it breeds resentment in her, as if she is not exactly winning in some kind of way. But this doesn't run deep, and for as long as she feels that she controls me, she will just accept it. Living with her for 2.5 weeks is about self-abandonment, lots of headaches, and lots of work on the brink of my mental capacity. There's not much physical effort, but there's also no rest, and I am in much better shape working my busy life overseas. Now, I'm not exactly sure why I posted this, but hopefully somebody can relate to the things that I've been going through. Yeah, this situation is really sad in a lot of ways, because it sounds like your mom is towards the end of her life, and she literally just doesn't have anybody. And sure, your mom does kind of sound like a jerk to a certain extent, but also it sounds like she has nobody else. And sure, you could just turn your back on her, but also it's your mom, so you want to try to have some kind of relationship towards the end of her life. Like, it's all super complicated and so nuanced that I really do have a lot of compassion for you. It really is a tough situation, and it's not as easy as like stepping away and being like, no, I'm not going to be in your life. So truly, I think you're a good person for putting up with all of this and choosing to still stay connected with your mom, even if she's not the most pleasant person to be around in the first place. Am I the jerk for not renting an apartment to my sister's friend after my sister promised her friend that I would be giving them this apartment? Here's what happened. Okay, so I own a small building and I bought it very cheap and I fixed it up myself. Now, I am not an awful landlord. My price is fair and I keep the building in good shape and I fix any problems that might appear. It's also relevant to say that I don't accept animals in the building. Now, I had an empty apartment, so I put an ad out online and I got a few candidates. I was then talking to my sister and I mentioned that I was searching for a new tenant. Now, I did my usual thing. I showed the apartment, I asked the candidates to fill out a form, but one candidate that came in was blind and he came with a friend. During the visit, he commented that he has a service dog. Now, I did comment that as per the ad, I don't accept animals, but he informed me that since it is a service dog, it legally doesn't apply as a dog. So I said okay, and we eventually moved the visitation to end. And for me, he automatically went to the last in the list. Besides not accepting dogs, I know I have at least 3 tenants who are allergic to dogs, and I won't inconvenience my already existing tenants. So I made my choice, and I called the candidates to inform them of my choice. Well, later in the day, my sister called me very upset. It turns out the blind guy is my sister's friend. She told me that her friend called and said that he wasn't chosen and was incredibly pissed off. And so, in turn, she was mad at me, saying that he was great, he would be the perfect tenant, and so on and so forth. But I told her that I just took a decision based on my impression and background check, and I had a candidate that I liked a lot more. Well, that's when she told me something that honestly blew my mind. She told me that she promised the apartment to her friend, and I told her that it's not her property to make promises or decisions for, and that she needs to call her friend and apologize, especially since I'm not changing my choice. Now, this happened 3 weeks ago, and she wouldn't respond to my text messages or my calls. And this weekend, we had a family party, and she literally gave me the cold shoulder the entire time. So am I the jerk for not picking her friend to live in my apartment? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk here. Your sister should not have done that. She had no right to go to her friend and be like, okay, don't worry, he's gonna give you the apartment. It's like, wait a second, what are you doing? This is not your property. You can't make those kind of calls. So for her to do that in the first place is completely ignorant. And also, you are well within your right to choose whoever you want. You own the building and it's your property. And sure, while your sister shouldn't have done that, I also think that it's really messed up that you didn't want this guy in your apartment, all because he had a service dog. Like, I'm not sure where you're from, but where I'm from, that could be seen as like blatant discrimination and you can get in a lot of legal trouble. So on that end, you definitely need to do better, but also your sister had no right to promise that apartment to her friend, because at the end of the day, this property does not belong to her. An entitled Karen comes into my convenience store and freaks out on me and my coworker in a way that is honestly completely inappropriate. Here's what happened. So I work as a supervisor at a small convenience store. In my area, there is a law where if we sell a product that is eligible to be returned for a bottle deposit, we must take it back if asked to. However, we are also directly across the street from a large grocery store that has redemption machines. The other day, an older woman comes in with her husband to buy some stuff and return some of the bottles. She is notorious for doing this and usually does this when we're super busy. When my cashier saw her come into the store, she asked me to stand behind the register with her in case there was any trouble. Now I said of course, and I just pretended to be looking over the schedule. She rings the lady for her purchases and then starts counting the bottles and cans, and it all comes out to be worth about $2.40. My cashier tells the customer that she will process the bottle return today, but that if she comes back next time with over $1 worth of bottles and cans, we will refuse to do it and send her across the street because they are better equipped. Well, as expected, this lady starts throwing a hissy fit. She brings up the fact that it is illegal to refuse her and that if we do, she's going to call the state police to report us and we will all be fired. Now, my cashier apologizes and mentions that the only reason she suggests for her to go across the street is that it will all be easier for her, the customer, but she just hates this idea too. She says that obviously we hate her and don't want her business. Now, my cashier tries to explain, but the customer keeps cutting her off, talking about how nobody cares about her anymore. Eventually, she starts yelling about how everybody she has ever loved is dead now, all because she is so old. Now, don't get me wrong, I felt bad about that. However, I also felt it was unnecessary for her to try and use that against us. After a few minutes of this, the transaction is over and she eventually leaves. But I honestly still don't understand why she doesn't just go across the street, but also I don't think I'll ever know the truth. Okay, first of all, I think someone in the comments of this post said it best. The reason she doesn't go across the street is because that means she has to use a machine and she can't yell at machines. She wanted a person in front of her that she could scream at because her life sucks. And that is not fair for you or your coworkers in the slightest. So hopefully this lady doesn't come back because the way she acted was completely inappropriate. An entitled Karen makes my life a living nightmare when she walks in with her party of 8 into our restaurant and starts making crazy demands that I just simply couldn't keep up with. And after dealing with literally 10 other tables around me, as well as being short-staffed the entire night, I finally hit my breaking point. And now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I just woke up after the worst night I've ever had. I work at a dive restaurant or sports bar in a smaller town, and between high school sports and homecoming season and football season, we get our butts handed to us. Lately, we've been short-staffed with 3 servers when we should have about 6 at our disposal. We'll also only have 1 to 2 hosts when we need more, specifically to handle to-goes and bussing the tables. So anyways, I get to work yesterday at 4:00 p.m. and the place is an absolute disaster. Only 2 servers were there for the morning shift and 1 manager who didn't start taking tables until one of the other servers physically refused to take any more. I mean, the restaurant is packed. I spent the first hour of my shift cleaning everybody else's tables while also pre-bussing and running food. The night shift only had me and 2 other servers, one being a double. Well, finally I get my first table, and from there the night goes south really quickly. One server is single-handedly taking on every single table in the front of the restaurant, while me and the other server split the entire back section of the restaurant. And guess what? We fill up again. I had so many tables at one point, I was literally running back and forth from the kitchen. All the while, we have nothing stocked up, we have nothing clean, silverware is being rolled after the host sits 10 tables without it, and I just feel like my whole back was in shock. But everything changes when they walk in. The most evil table in the entire world. It's an 8-top. It's 2 couples with 2 kids each, and this one lady is staring me down before she even sits down in her seat. I'm in the middle of cashing out tables and taking orders, so it takes me about 5 minutes to get to them. I walked over to get their drink order, and this lady rolls her eyes and says to me, "Oh look, she's finally here." Now, it takes me about 2 minutes to bring them because the bartender is so busy, so I had to pour my own beers and make the drinks. So I give them the beverages, and I tell them that I will be back to take their order, because once again, I must check on the other 10 tables, and the other 2 servers are underwater at the moment. Well, about 10 minutes later, I come back to their table, and I ask if they're ready to order or if they want an appetizer. Well, this entitled Karen cuts me off and yells, I haven't even ordered my appetizer yet, okay?" And I just say to her, "That's so crazy. Okay, what can I get you?" Because at this point, I know I am making no money. These people are aware that every single table is full, and this woman has stared me down as I ran from table to table. As I'm trying to get the order, the other people at the table are telling her to be quiet. I ask them, "Can I get you guys any other appetizers?" And this entitled Karen pipes up again and says to me, "Yes, that couple also would like something." and before she could continue, I just cut her off. I said to her, yeah, I'm gonna get you guys another server. And immediately I turned around. And this is something I've never done in my entire serving career. I've always been complimented for being so nice. Tables tell me that I'm too happy to be a server. Usually, I let the rudeness just fall right off of me. But last night was a different story. With the lack of manager help and the lack of any supplies, begging the host to stop seating tables for even 10 minutes so that I can clean something, inevitably, my happy server facade had fallen apart. My patience has run so thin for these small town regulars, these football and cheerleader moms who make it their life mission to run a server into the ground just to be mean and never tip. The server splitting the back with me finally stops taking tables 2 hours before we close. I get more parties, more evil regulars, more people stopping me mid-taking a table's order to ask me when they can order, and it's like, hello, you just got sat down. It was so bad. Our manager ended up dipping out at about 7 o'clock, and we close at 10 o'clock, and I didn't get home until after 12:30. By the time my last table cashed out, I sat out back and I cried my eyes out. I physically cannot handle the disrespect anymore, the lack of self-awareness tables have to their surroundings. The attitude and entitlement of these small town regulars have turned me into a different person. I feel so stressed out every single day. There's no more happiness left in my body. Everyone knows everyone, and every regular has the owner's phone number. So not only are we drowning, but now the owner is on the cameras. He's calling and yelling and micromanaging, all with what little things he can see on his stupid screen. Now, I'd like to say that I'm a pretty strong server. I usually handle a lot on my plate before needing to ask for help. 90% of the time, rude customers don't bother me because that's just how people are here. I learned really early on that this place is full of the worst kinds of people. And lately, I cry before and after my shifts, just dreading what will happen next. I'm taking the stress home with me and it makes me miserable. The coworker drama is at an all-time high, and we're lucky to get through a shift without a fight. It is so frustrating, but I'm also scared to find another job. I'm just going to lay in bed and cry until I have to be back tonight. And trust me, this post could have been twice as long with all the things that happened last night, because trust me, I'm leaving out quite a bit of drama. Yeah, that sounds like an absolute nightmare, and I'm so sorry that you have to deal with people like that. It is so awful when servers get treated this way. You're literally running all over the restaurant, only to then be surrounded by entitled Karens who are so rude and demanding that it really would test anybody's patience. It's like at that point, you've got to know that this place is slammed, and that there's like no servers around you and everything's a mess. So for them to be like, wow, we haven't even ordered yet. Hello, are you gonna help us? Like, that's crazy to me, and there is just no good excuse for that. So hopefully you're able to find another job, even though you're afraid to look for one, because what you're experiencing absolutely sucks, and you deserve so much better than what you're currently going through. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for accusing my mom of being selfish when she forces my twin sister's dad to include me in everything that my sister does? Because it couldn't be more apparent that they do not want me around, but still she is forcing me to do this. Because at this point, I feel so frustrated that I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, yes, my twin sister and I don't have the same dad. My mom spent quality time with two guys close together, and then she had us. And DNA even proved this as well. It's always been a weird thing, and we get a lot of questions in real life. My sister's dad was willing to do the DNA test, and when he took it, it showed that he was her dad but not mine. Mine had to be dragged to court, and he has found ways around paying for me, and he and his family never wanted to know me. So my sister grew up with a dad, but I didn't. Now, my mom didn't like it, and when we were younger, maybe about 5 years old, I apparently used to get so sad when she would leave and go to her dad's house, and I couldn't go with her. Now, I don't remember it, but I do get why it would be true. So mom told him that he had to include me, and he was like, nope, no way. It ended up in court with my mom wanting to take away his parenting time, but the judge ended up saying that he didn't have to take me for his custody time, but he had to include me in any big days out with my sister or for family holidays if she went along. He tried to get my mom to drop it, but she refused. So ever since I was about 5 or 6 years old, he has been forced to include me in his life sometimes, and the lives of his family members as well, and none of them want me there. I know they see me as a huge burden, and I absolutely hated it. If I wasn't being ignored, they were just really short with me and made it so obvious that they didn't want me there. My sister was torn between me and her dad, and I told her that I didn't want to deny her a dad, so she never let it come between them or us. When I was 13 years old, I tried to put my foot down with my mom, but she told me I had to go, and she even said that she she would take his butt to court so fast if he let me wander off and didn't make sure that I was okay like he would with my sister. There's only 2 years left of this as I am 16 years old, but I can see how much my sister's paternal side despises having me around. It just sucks being forced somewhere that nobody wants you, and my mom is still serious about taking him back to court. So I told my mom a couple of nights ago that it needs to stop, and she can't keep doing this, but she told me that I don't deserve to be left out because of her actions. Well, I told her that she can't make them love me, and they have shown their disdain for me over 10 years now. I told her to just let it go, and she got so mad that she wanted to yell and cuss at them. I told her to stop being selfish and stop forcing them to include me because she's the only one who wants that, not me. I told her I never wanted this, and my mom eventually broke down, and then she told me that it wasn't necessary to be cruel to her. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Your mom is a massive piece of garbage for using you as some kind of pawn in her game. The only reason she has you going over there is literally to punish your sister's dad. That's all this is. She doesn't care about you being included. She just wants to stick this to your dad for some stupid reason. And so of course this entire mess falls on your shoulders. Like, does she really not apparently see how awful this is for you? I'm sure you come home probably looking and feeling really depressed and being like, wow, I really don't want to go back over there. And the fact that she's just ignoring that willingly and being like, no, you have to be there. I would hate for you to miss out on whatever your sister's going through. But it's like, what are you talking about? These people don't want me there, and I definitely don't want to be there. What's there to miss out on? These people hate me. So seriously, I really hope this all gets better sooner than later, because the way your mom's treating you is completely inappropriate, and I don't blame you for trying to end this. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for breaking my small friendship with my college roommate after she yelled at me over some of the smallest, most pettiest things on planet Earth? Because right now, after all these years, I'm starting to question if I did something wrong, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened back in 2023, and I'm still wondering every now and then if I was the jerk at all in this situation. In May of 2022, I graduated high school and started my first year of college in August of 2022. Sadly, my college is about 2 hours away from where I lived, so my mom had to always drive me back and forth every time I would visit home for the weekends and holidays that my college had. Now, I'm both an extrovert and an introvert, but I still don't like being away from my family since I love them so much. I eventually tried to get along with my first roommate at the time, and things were going fine until she started bullying me. She kept saying our room stunk and asked me what kind of shampoo and body wash I use, but I didn't tell her anything since that was private and a dumb question to be asking. Eventually, she and her friends would bully me behind my back when they didn't think I was listening. For example, one day I was watching some YouTube videos with my headphones on, and I was just minding my own business until I heard one of her friends rushing in and out of our room and shouted out loud that I smelled like an animal that had passed away. Well, my heart sunk, and I really started to wonder if I really was smelling that bad. But every Friday when my mom picked me up, she would always tell me that I smelled good and that my roommate was just being a jerk. Fast forward a month or so later, and I decided to change rooms. I was so sick of my roommate and her friends bullying me and giving me depression. However, I apparently had to email a certain amount of people on my dorm level floor that didn't have a roommate if I could become their new roommate, since I was the one leaving my room and not my old roommate. I emailed about 3 people and only one responded, and for this story, I'll call her Emma. Emma responded saying how glad she would be to have a roommate and told me I can move in whenever I was ready. Since I didn't want to waste more time with my old roommate, I packed all my stuff and I moved to my new roommate's room a few days after emailing her. When I first moved in, Emma and I were having a great time. We had a lot more things in common than me and my old roommate did, and she was just a lot easier to talk to. However, after getting to know each other more, she told me that she was disabled. I can't remember which condition she had, since it has been over a year since this incident, but I know that it was either ADHD or autism. I told her that I also have a disabled brother, and I didn't care that she was disabled, since that wouldn't change my mind about her as a person. The months go by and things between us go great, but eventually I started to notice that she never cleaned her side of the room. Whenever she gets breakfast, lunch, and dinner, she would leave all the unfinished food in the box and almost never throw them away into the trash can in our room or even in the hallway. The room eventually started to smell bad, and I didn't know how to bring it up to her. I would just hope that she would clean it up eventually, since no one likes the smell of food going bad. Well, I was apparently wrong. She would only rarely throw away her food boxes into the trash, and I would have to wait for her to leave so I could clean them up myself. I know I could have told her, but I hate the thought of getting yelled at or making her feel bad. Later on, I started to also notice that she would have panic attacks almost every single week. Now, nothing is wrong with that. I can completely understand panic attacks since I've had a few myself and understand that people deal with stressful things all the time too. But whenever she would have a panic attack, she would just start screaming and screaming over and over again and make me feel so uncomfortable and unsafe. Now, to make this more clear, I hate it when people scream or yell. My dad was that kind of person who would yell a lot and scare me every time he got angry and started yelling at anyone. He mistreated my mom and then eventually mistreated me once they were divorced. At the age of 17, I stopped seeing my dad completely due to an incident that happened back in 2021. So even though I haven't seen my dad in over 3 years, I still have problems with people yelling at me or even just in general when it's in a negative way. Emma told me that she has to take medication to make her calm down, but I have never seen her take any pills or liquid medication or anything like that. I remember seeing her take one pill when she first told me about them, but never have I seen her take them again. So to me, it looks like she doesn't even want to take her own medication to stay calm. Every now and then, Emma and I would get into small arguments. For example, one day, I wanted to go on a walk since I wanted to lose some weight. She asked me if she could come as well, and I said sure, even though I wasn't fully comfortable with it. I was honestly just afraid if she and me would get into an argument, since the day before we had one over her stupid charger not working and asking me what to do. A few minutes into the walk, she asked why I was being so quiet, and honestly, I was scared to answer, so I just said that I wasn't in the mood to talk. Well, she immediately started yelling at me, saying I was being a jerk for not talking to her, and then she just walked back to our dorm. I was shaking so badly because she just screamed so loudly in my face and made me feel like I was a jerk like she said. When I asked my boyfriend and mom about if I was acting like a jerk, they said no and that Emma was just being a jerk for some dumb reason. And even though that made me feel better, I still felt bad deep down since I still worried if I did anything wrong. Months later go by, and so do many other stupid arguments. Then it was about 2 weeks left into our first year of college being over, and we were both excited. We decided a plan of going out for dinner at a restaurant that me and my family went to, since Emma wanted to try it out too, and it was on the last day of our exams being finished, and that would essentially be the second to last day for us at college. However, on the very last week of college, Emma's charger broke again. For some reason, she kept getting really bad iPhone chargers, and they all seemed to break a couple of weeks after buying them. Well, she screamed so loudly and then asked me what to do. Now, at the time, I was wearing headphones since I was finishing a project that I needed to get done, so I just ignored her. She then looked at me and said, hello, and that finally got my attention. I told her that I obviously have a Samsung charger and I don't have an Apple charger since none of my devices are from Apple, and that she should just go and ask some people that are living in the dorm hallway if you can borrow one. I also said that if you can't find any, then just wait until tomorrow and buy one. And even though I gave her an actually good answer to her question, what I said somehow pissed her off still. She told me that I was being a terrible friend, saying that I was being a jerk and that I don't give a crap about her phone problem. Now, hearing her say these things to me again just made my blood boil. I was just so done with it. I told her again that I don't know what to do since I don't own any Apple chargers, and I told her she can either wait for tomorrow to buy another one at the school store or just ask someone in our dorms to use theirs for a bit. But once I said that, she stormed off and slammed the door. And when she did that, I started crying my eyes out, and I texted my college resident assistant that I needed to talk to her about my roommate. Well, a few minutes later, I get a knock on my door, and it is the resident assistant. And it's then that I told her everything that happened as I cry my eyes out. And once I was done, she said she was so sorry for me and asked if I wanted to come downstairs to the office and talk to someone who might be able to make me and my roommate change rooms. And you know what? I said yes. But before I could even leave, my roommate came upstairs with some food and told me that she was sorry for yelling at me over the charger thing. And then she said that she's just stressed out with her exams. But you know what? I didn't care. She has done this multiple times, and only half the time would she even apologize. And usually, these apologies would just be half-baked. I didn't care that she had ADHD or autism. She still can't hurt me like this and give me apologies that aren't good enough, while also not changing at all as a person. I left with my RA, and I talked with some other people who were also in charge of the dorm stuff. And maybe about 1 or 2 hours later, they all asked me if I was sure that I wanted to switch rooms again. And I said yes, absolutely. Before I could change rooms though, me and 2 other people had to go upstairs and back to my room to tell Emma what was going on and that I'm leaving the room since I feel unsafe and uncomfortable with her yelling, screaming, and rude behavior. Well, once I walked in, Emma knew something was wrong. One of the people with me told her that I was leaving due to not feeling safe and that I was uncomfortable with how she's been treating me. And she seriously looks at me confused and mad and tells the two people that she thinks I'm not respecting her at all with her disability, saying that I don't seem to care that she has a hard time staying calm and controlling her panic attacks. I then tell her that she actually promised me when I first moved in that she will leave whenever she starts getting mad at stuff and when she just can't control her emotions. That to me, I'm the one not being respected by her because she made a promise and never kept it. And what's even funny to me is that she always buys stuff to calm her down, but she never uses them once she gets them. It's like she gets bored with whatever she buys immediately and just lets herself be angry and out of control and doesn't seem to give a crap about how I'm feeling. Once I told her this, she almost yelled at me in front of the two other people who came with me and then just asked for some time to cool off. One of the helpers said sure and told the other helper to help me take my stuff to a room that's on the other side of the building. Once I got settled in, I finally started to relax. On the last day of college, my roommate packed up all of her stuff and then texted me once she was out of the room and going home. But once I got that text, I blocked her and haven't unblocked her ever since. Now, my family, my friends, and my boyfriend to this day all still say that I did nothing wrong and that she was the one with the problem. But I still sometimes worry if I did anything wrong or if I caused all of this to happen. I also found out the day I was wanting to change rooms again that Emma had an old roommate during the start of the year that moved into a different dorm room because she would never clean up her side of the room and would always scream about all kinds of stuff. So that made me feel a bit better at the time, but I still don't know if I did anything wrong here. So am I the jerk for the way I ended our friendship? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong. This roommate was absolutely insane. Both the first one and the final one that you had to deal with. Like seriously, both of them are out of their minds. The first one literally treated you like garbage and was lying to you the entire time. Like I'm sure you didn't smell bad at all. You probably were very clean and you literally just minded your own business. So for her to say that you smell like an animal that passed away is like so inappropriate. So to that extent, I don't blame you for moving out of there. But this second roommate by the name of Emma absolutely takes the cake. She's the kind of person who would be like, wow, you're not respecting my disability, while also doing nothing to manage her disability. Look, if she really did have panic attacks and like debilitating ADHD and she was having trouble dealing with her autism or whatever's going on, then that is her responsibility to take care of. It shouldn't fall on your shoulders all because she's not taking her medication. Like this literally is an Emma problem and not a you problem. So the fact that she yelled at you is completely inappropriate. Like there is never a universe where that is okay. So from her living in absolute filth all the way to her outbursts where she's screaming at you and even her trying to be like, wow, you're insensitive to my disabilities. Like all of that makes her incredibly entitled and an awful person, because anybody who weaponizes their disability or mental health in this kind of way and tries to turn it against you all because they're not getting what they want, in my opinion, is a horrible person. So on that end, you are definitely not the jerk here, because it really seems like you're the one that tried to do everything right. My entitled neighbors abandon their dog when they move out, leaving him tied up in their backyard with just a bowl of water and some food to hold him over. But after I take the dog in and get him healthy and living a good life, these neighbors come back 6 months later demanding that I give their dog back, while also spreading the lie around the neighborhood that I actually stole the dog. So now I'm super frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I live in a pretty quiet neighborhood and I've always loved animals. About 6 months ago, my next door neighbors, who we will call Mark and Julie for the sake of the story, moved out of their house and completely abandoned their dog by the name of Buddy. They didn't say a word about it. They just left him tied up in the backyard with a bag of food and water. Now, when I realized what had happened, I was furious. Who leaves a dog behind like that? I immediately took Buddy in and made sure that he was safe and fed. Over the next few days, I tried contacting Mark and Julie to find out what was going on, but they ignored all of my calls and text messages. So I figured that they didn't care and had intentionally left Buddy behind. I ended up deciding to keep him, and Buddy is the sweetest dog I've ever met, and he quickly became a huge part of my life. I took him to the vet, he ended up getting vaccinated, and I made sure that he was healthy. It's been 6 months and he's like family to me now. He is happy, healthy, and honestly living his best life. Then last week, Mark randomly showed up at my door saying that they wanted Buddy back. Apparently, they had some personal issues and had to leave town quickly, but now that things had settled, they are ready to bring him back home. And I was shocked. I told Mark that there was no way I was giving Buddy back, especially after they abandoned him for 6 months without any contact. When I said that, Mark got really defensive, saying that Buddy was their dog, and apparently I had stolen stolen him. He accused me of taking advantage of their situation and guilt-tripped me by saying that he and Julie had just been going through a tough time and needed a fresh start. He claimed that Buddy was better off with them since he is their dog and they had raised him for years. I told him straight up that Buddy was staying with me. If they cared about him so much, they wouldn't have left him behind like he was nothing. I reminded him that I had spent time and money taking care of Buddy when they couldn't be bothered to even let me know what was going on. I told him that Buddy has a new home now and that I wasn't about to uproot him just because they suddenly decided that they wanted to play the responsible pet owners again. Well, Mark and Julie are furious now. They've been around the neighborhood telling people that I stole their dog and that I'm a terrible person for not giving them back. Also, for your information, they're living at a hotel and will leave sometime this week. I feel like I'm doing the right thing by keeping Buddy, but honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. This is insane behavior, and I can't believe that Mark and Julie are coming back like this. For starters, it really needs to be said that yes, they did abandon their dog. They left him in their backyard tied up with only a bag of food and a bowl of water. Like seriously, what is going on right now? They're not only not good pet owners, but they're also not good people at all. Like if you can't take care of your dog and you're going through a rough time in your life, then give the dog a new home. Don't just tie it up in the back of the yard to eventually pass away, because that dog would never last. That is insane behavior. That is not okay. It's also incredibly crazy to me that Mark's like, oh, you stole my dog. You took my dog away from me and I want it back. I deserve to have it. And it's like, no, you don't. You deserve to go to jail for neglecting your dog, for literally abandoning it in the back of the yard. Because in my opinion, I think the original poster is absolutely entitled to take care of this dog. They've gone to the vet, they've gotten vaccinations, and they've taken the time to rehome the dog and get it acclimated to a new environment. For Mark and Julie to step in and be like, okay, we're gonna take our dog back now. By the way, we live in a hotel and we have no place to live. It's like, no, I'm not giving the dog back. I'm sorry, but that's not happening. So truly, you are definitely not the jerk. And if anybody from the neighborhood has a problem with that, then I'm pretty sure you can show his vet records and be like, look, I've been taking care of this dog for 6 months. And then explain that these people left the dog in the back of the yard, presumably just to fend for itself. Because you are a much better pet owner than Mark and Julie could ever dream to be. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boyfriend applied for a $17,000 loan on my behalf, all because of the debt that he kept a secret from me from his illegal substance use. And now, as a result, I feel completely betrayed and incredibly angry. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My boyfriend and I have been together for 4 years. We've known each other since elementary school. We've always had a thing for each other, and our relationship is a pretty good love story. Unfortunately, the last year, I've started to notice a significant change on his part. He was always sleeping around, switching between jobs, drinking a lot, and doing substances, as well as not functioning as a man in the house. And basically, I was on my own for a lot of things, and there wasn't much zest for life with him. I asked multiple times what was wrong, and he always told me nothing, stating that it was his age, that he was turning 30, and he was just in a funk, and that he hadn't accomplished anything and was burnt out from work. And for reference, he worked in IT and as a DJ. Now, it had been a tough year, but we decided to get a dog who would bring us lots of love and joy into our lives. We were looking forward to it, and it was one of the things to get him on his feet for a bit. On the day when I had already signed the contract for the dog and was about to send it off, I got a call from the bank that someone had applied for a loan on my behalf for nearly £500,000. And for reference, that is about 17,000 US dollars. And someone did this who had access to my passport, my ID, and even sent them my bank statements. Now, the only one who has access to this is my boyfriend, who denied it until I totally folded and then confessed. He even opened an account with another bank and asked for more large sums there as well. But luckily, he didn't get away with any of it. Finally, he told me that he had been in a big debt for a year now, all because of the substances that he was taking. He said that he was afraid to tell me and thought that he would somehow work it out and that I wouldn't find out. Now, he didn't tell anyone, not even his friends. He misused my personal information without my permission, and he went into my phone at night and got my bank details. So at this point, I have no idea what to do. I canceled the dog, of course, but he was to be my future husband, and we were to be together for the rest of our lives. But now I don't even know what kind of person he is. I can't trust him. There is a lot of anger in me, and I don't know if I will ever be able to forgive this. What should I do? Honestly, this is so unforgivable. If I had a girlfriend who did this this behind my back, all because of some debt that they had over illegal substances that they were taking, I would kick them to the curb. There's no way I would ever allow that to slide. This is a massive betrayal of trust, and he only did this not because he wanted to clear his debt, but in reality, he did this because he has an addiction. That is literally all that's going on right now. He tried to commit fraud at your expense, even going as far as stealing your information. And I don't know about you, but this is probably the biggest red flag anyone could ever ask for. So truly, in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would definitely leave this guy sooner than later. Because while you may think you have a relationship that's a pretty good love story, in my opinion, this is only going to end as a complete disaster. An entitled Karen gets angry with me after I refused to let her unload my groceries, as she was acting like the most impatient person on planet Earth. Here's what happened. Okay, so this just happened a few hours ago. I was in line to check out of the grocery store, and it was super busy, and they only had a few lanes open. The cashier was scanning the stuff from the person in front of me, and I was putting my groceries onto the belt as room became available. Now, the entitled Karen standing right behind me kept inching closer and closer, as if invading my personal space was gonna make everything go faster. I was down to 4 items left in my cart, and this entitled Karen grabs a bag of tortilla chips out of my cart and says to me, "I'm just gonna reach around from this side and help you." Now, keep in mind, I wasn't moving slow at all, and the woman in front of me was just now paying, so my stuff had not even started being scanned. I wasn't holding up the line at all, it was just busy. Well, this entitled Karen was just standing there holding my chips, and I think she was waiting for me to acknowledge or even thank her in some kind of way. So I took the chips from her and politely said, "No thank you. I prefer to do it all myself." And I then set the chips back down in my cart. So I grabbed my eggs, I put them on the belt, then my 2 bags of chips, and finally my bread, and then I put up the divider. And the whole time I did this, she glared at me as if I had just insulted her entire bloodline. So I went to bag my groceries, and at the store I go to, you bag your own stuff there, and it's set up so that 2 people can be bagging at the same time. Well, this entitled Karen walks up to start bagging her stuff up, and as soon as she's next to me, she is just loudly and aggressively humming to herself. Now, I had not planned on saying anything else to her, but the weird humming that she was making honestly made me want to. But instead, I just finished bagging my groceries and then I left, because this Karen was incredibly weird. Yeah, that lady was clearly trying to rush you ahead and had no patience about the situation. And for her to reach into your grocery cart and be like, "Oh, don't worry, I'll help you out," that is super weird and super obnoxious. There's no reason to do that. But I just love the fact that you did not allow her to rush you or push you forward. You grabbed your stuff and said, "No thanks, I'm gonna do this myself." Because this lady was literally just trying to push you along and get you out of her way, as if she had some kind of weird entitlement over her time and just being in this line. So honestly, good for you for the way that you handled this, because I know if I was in your shoes, I definitely would have said something. My boyfriend does not have a job, and he has currently given in to all of his laziness and refuses to do anything to further any kind of career. And at this point, I'm seriously so frustrated that I just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my 26-year-old boyfriend and I have been together for 1 year. I'm a 20-year-old female, and when we met, he had a job, but then he resigned 6 months afterwards because it is emotionally draining for him. For reference, he works 6 days a week on the morning shift. He lives paycheck to paycheck, and I would say that he's an irresponsible spender and is likely to spend his entire money without saving anything for emergencies. He currently lives with his sister and split the bills with her. His parents always urge him to give something to them since they need it for maintenance and stuff like that. So at the end of the month, there is nothing for him to save for himself. Throughout our relationship, he has been the one carrying our conversations daily. I am a pre-med student, so I would only respond from time to time depending on my schedule. I always tell him in advance that I would always be busy and all this other stuff. And since I can't reciprocate the quality time he's been giving me, I give back through gift giving like what he actually wants. So anyways, back to when he resigned. After that, he tried to apply again and pass his resume to numerous companies. Then one company interviewed him and he passed. The downside of his work, according to him, was that it is a project-based job and it just made him discouraged and lazy. During working hours, he would only play in the morning and then sleep at the afternoon. He was set up where he would work from home and actually pays above minimum wage. But then he lets his laziness get to him to the point that he's the only person who didn't get renewed. Plus, he keeps on filing leave due to personal reasons, or he just doesn't want to work. And that's when it all becomes hectic. Since most of the time he doesn't have any money, I mostly pay for our dates. And when he has money, he does pay. He took a 2-week break before he applied for a job again, but now it's been 2 months since his last job, and he still doesn't have any kind of employment. I already confronted him about these things, but it's just like he only realized that he's been a happy-go-lucky person and that he should establish a career for himself. My friends told me that it is pointless to carry a dead weight around because having 2 jobs in 1 year speaks volumes. I personally don't know what to do, and I don't know if leaving him would give him a wake-up call or it would just make him more miserable. What should I do? Okay, honestly, it really seems like your boyfriend is one giant red flag. He is 26 years old, and in my opinion, that is definitely the time to figure out what you want to do. Sure, there's always ambiguity to have some kind of change in your career plans, but to sit around and do nothing and just sleep in and be lazy, that cannot be an option. And in my opinion, that is not something that anybody should ever tolerate because he needs to work. He can't just sit around and do nothing. Even if it's a minimum wage job that he doesn't like, it's better than not working and damaging your resume. So hopefully this gets figured out, because if after 3 months he still doesn't have a job, then in my opinion, I would be questioning everything about this relationship. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for leaving someone on red who contacted me after 5 years of being no contact? Because right now I find this all very difficult and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So many moons ago, I met someone and we instantly clicked as friends. And time went by and we ended up in a relationship. Well, eventually the relationship went south as my ex wanted to see other people but still keep me around just in case. Now I was in love, so I did this for a while until I realized that I deserve better. And it was definitely a moment where a big lesson was learned. When I made the decision to go no contact, it was very difficult. My ex didn't fully agree with doing this, but if I didn't, I would have been continuously used. So I went no contact, and the response was not good. I got followed pretty hard, and it went on for about a year. It really sucked too because I was just trying to start anew, and every time the ex would somehow make contact with me, whether she showed up at my work or was calling me from random numbers, etc., I had already been missing them a bunch, so I would cave, catch up, start to feel used again, and then repeat the process. And again, this was years ago, and we were much younger at the time. Now I know the evidence points to no contact being the best and healthiest option, and I know at the time it was. However, it felt like and still feels like going no contact was a pretty harsh thing to do. I essentially just shut this person who had loved and cared for me out of my life. There were days when I felt real grief over that, and it was super hard for a while. Anyways, on to the point, I ultimately let go of the situation about 4 years ago. It was an out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. I had already been through quite a bit. I had relocated, I had matured, and so much more. I didn't really forget everything, but it's just something that doesn't really exist anymore. The whole situation and the ex is very irrelevant in my current life. However, recently the ex found me on a social media platform, which I wasn't on when I first started blocking. So yeah, getting contact about 5 years later was a shock. They happen to live somewhat nearby, which is crazy because I moved about 2,000 miles away, and asked if I wanted to catch up for coffee. While I have no interest in meeting up, it brought back a very familiar pain, which is the pain that comes from intentionally ignoring someone who at one point was my best friend. So would I be the jerk by not responding? I just find it kind of weird to purposefully not respond to someone instead of just being like, hey, I appreciate the invite, but this is not something that I'm comfortable with. I hope you're good though, and I wish you the best. I think I primarily want to respond in that way because it feels like I'm not dehumanizing them, which they had expressed in the past that is how no contact made them feel. So anyways, would I be the jerk? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, you wouldn't be the jerk for choosing not to respond. That's how no contact works. You literally cut them off because they wanted you as a second option instead of a first option. You might as well have been a spare tire in the back of their car. And honestly, who wants to live a life like that? So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because if I was in your shoes, I absolutely would have done the exact same thing. My entitled old neighbors are angry with me because I keep parking my car on the street. Things got so bad that they literally went to my house and screamed at me just because my car was parked on the street, forcing me to call the police just to try and resolve this issue. Here's what happened. Okay, so my entitled old neighbor constantly bothers us about parking on the public neighborhood street. He thinks he owns the spot in front of his house and that the whole road actually belongs to him. A few months ago, I pulled up in the space between our driveways that he believes he owns just to run in and grab something that I needed in the house. This man then runs out and starts yelling at my girlfriend in the running car, saying that it's common courtesy to not park on the street in front of somebody else's house. He was screaming about how he's lived here since the neighborhood was built and all this other garbage. Now, I would have fully put him in his place right then, but I was in a hurry, so I just told him to get lost and that anyone can park here. And then I left. Fast forward to today, and it's garage pickup this morning. So So to help the trash guys out in the cul-de-sac, I parked across the street. Well, literally not even 10 hours after pickup, a new entitled neighbor across the street and the one next door are waiting for me to come home and confront me and tell me not to park in front of their houses ever again. Now at this point, I've had a pretty rough week and I was not in the mood. So I said we have nothing to talk about. I am parked here 100% legally and don't ever come tell me to move my car ever again. Well, they do not accept this and start yelling and name calling, so I gave it right back to them. I literally had to call the police to come educate these dumb idiots about how the roads work. And no, for the record, there is no homeowners association, there's no unincorporated county land, and the sheriff couldn't care less about parking and told them to leave us alone. And you know what? The next time either one of them talks to me, I'm filing a complaint like the sheriff told me to do. I hate these entitled people so much, and I seriously can't wait until the day that I don't have to deal with them any longer. Yeah, that sounds super obnoxious and really annoying to deal with. I can't imagine having neighbors constantly on my case about parking my car in the street. Like seriously, you're allowed to do that. You literally are breaking no rules, and these people are getting bent out of shape over nothing. But I do know if I was in your shoes, the second the cops showed up, I definitely would have filed a report right then and there. Like there's no way I'm gonna deal with that for a second, and I would have gotten that ball rolling like right away. So I guess you're better than me because these people have an awful attitude, and in my opinion, you do not deserve that in the slightest. My entitled old coworker tried to tell me that I didn't actually know what I was doing while I was attempting to fix a machine at the job we work at, resulting in me not only putting him in his place, but also showing him how stupid he truly was. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a garden center that a friend of mine owns. I'm also one of the unofficial managers and tech support. When we got new credit card machines, I help my friend set them up. So if one of them goes out to lunch and she isn't around, I'm the one who gets called up to fix it. And this story is about one of my old entitled coworkers who did exactly that on Saturday. I get paged up to the front of the store and told that the credit card machine is locked up. And I'm thinking to myself, no big deal, let's try a reset. Well, the machine wouldn't shut down, which meant that I had to unplug it and make sure the battery backup went dry. Well, some genius tore the flags off the cords, telling you which cord went to which device. And we had a lot of devices up front, namely a cash register, the phone, the router, the credit card machine, the receipt printer, as well as a few light items all plugged into the power strip. So I had to figure out which one belonged to the credit card machine. I finally found it and unplugged it, and my entitled coworker said, "You haven't even plugged it in yet. There's still a bunch of wires going to the black box mounted up there, and you need to unplug that too. That's why the machine isn't powering down." And he says this while pointing to something above my head. Well, I look up and it's the router. This guy wants me to unplug the router, and it's like, no, I'm not doing that. And he then gives me the typical response of, well, I've been working here for years, but apparently I don't know anything, and you know more than I do. And he goes on and on. I told him that the router had nothing to do with the power to the machine, and I asked him to please leave the area. Well, he finally leaves while also still continuing to grumble. I get everything unplugged and I swap it out with the backup machine, and we're finally back in business. And as a side note, it took 24 hours for that stupid battery to finally dry out. Well, yesterday, this entitled old jerk and I were working together again, and he is still complaining about how dismissive I was of his advice. And it was then that I finally snapped. I said to him, you know what, you're right. You don't know everything. You wanted me to unplug the source of the internet signal. That has nothing to do with power. If I had unplugged the router, I could have destroyed that too, and we wouldn't be able to take the credit cards until we replaced it, since I don't know how old it is. Next time, don't offer any advice on things that you weren't there to see set up, and just leave the electronics alone. At the end of it, all he had to say was, oh, I was just trying to help. And seriously, these kind of attitudes are honestly the worst thing to deal with. Yeah, I can't understand when people who don't know what they're talking about try to chime in and act as if they know what they're talking about. This guy wanted to unplug the router. He was like, we need to unplug everything. It's the only way to get it to work. And it's like, dude, you seriously need to take a step back. And I'm so glad you told him to step away, because he literally would have made things so much worse. So good for you for putting this guy in his place, because sometimes people who act this way really do need to be told exactly why they're wrong. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.